Well, hello, guys. Sorry to be a couple minutes late. My hair is crazy today. And it was just being crazy. And you know what? It was what it was. But welcome to Happy Hour, guys. It is Friday. We made it through another week. Happy Hour is a stream that I do on most every Friday, except if I'm traveling or something. And it's basically a stream where I'm broadcasting right now on my main YouTube channel, my second YouTube channel, Actively Unwoke. If you are not yet subscribed to Actively Unwoke, please make sure you do so in the description below. Sometimes it comes in handy if I get an absurd strike. I'm also broadcasting on Rockfin. I'm broadcasting on Odyssey. I'm on my Facebook page. Please make sure you are liking and subscribing and mounting the like button on whatever platform you're on. Today we're going to watch I feel like we've reached the intersectionality jackpot today. Ooh, is there a new... Oh, look at that. I can put myself in a little square down in the corner now on StreamYard. Ooh, I kind of like it. Which do you guys prefer? Little square or side square? Then we're going to call this the Tim Pool setting. Little square, side square. I like the side square better. Okay, so we're going to watch the great trifecta. The trifecta of intersectionality. We have Black, feminist, and queer in the same presentation. We're going to watch the Black Feminism Initiative presents Conversations in Black Feminist Practice, Black, Queer, Radicalisms. I just don't know how much intersectionality can be fit into one presentation. So this is what we do on Happy Hour. We watch a woke training or lecture or discussion of some sort, and I drink. You guys can drink too. I mean, it's happy hour. It's always happy hour somewhere. But I do actually drink. I want to show you some of the beers I have that I just ran to the beer store and got today. And actually, it's ironic. So I'll tell you that story in a second. But so we're going to watch this. I'm going to drink. You guys can drink whatever you want. And we're going to talk about it. And we're just going to do some running commentary on what is coming up in this training. Now, we also do things on Happy Hour, like play Unwoke Bingo. So you can go ahead and get your Unwoke Bingo card in the description below. Generate your card. All cards are different. You got the free square in the middle. And then we're going to have a line, or we're going to go for corners. Yell out bingo in the chat if you end up getting a bingo. Now, you don't win a dang thing. But it's fun, and it keeps us kind of, focused on what the presentation is saying, because the whole idea behind Happy Hour is we want to make sure we're actually watching what these people are saying. Because I got to tell you guys, there is a big, with all of the reporting that's happened on, around critical race theory and all that stuff over the last several months, a lot of the news media are getting a lot of things wrong, because they're not paying attention to what's actually being said. What they're paying attention to are like the most offensive possible headlines that people are getting. And those things are true. Let's make sure we don't misunderstand. Those things are true, but that doesn't mean they're the whole story. And what I want to do here is make sure that we're really looking at what they're saying, because when you actually listen to what they're saying and you actually listen to what their real motives are and their real goals are, it's actually way scarier than what the news media will tell you. So we have to make sure we're watching as many primary sources as possible. We're actually looking at what people are saying. And, bingo helps us do that, because it makes sure we're paying attention to the words as they're going through. So make sure you get your Unwoke Bingo card. You can start there. Also, of course, make sure that you join my Locals community. Now, Locals is free to join. It is free. Actually, I'm going to do this one. Don't want to do two at once. That's gratuitous. So it is free to join. You can join at kb.locals.com. It'll get you my videos ad-free. It'll get you access to kind of lurk in the community and see what's going on, because I post different things in Locals than I do on other social media. And, you get to see and start to interact with some of the members of the community. But if you want to unlock all the features in Locals, to be able to comment on posts, to be able to make your own posts, to be able to chat in when I do Locals exclusives live streams, to join our 2 community Zoom calls that we do every single week. I actually spend about 6 hours a week on Zoom with my Locals, and I'm not talking for most of it. I'm not. I'm listening to what they have to say. We have discussions, we have interactions, and it's just like I love my locals. I'm so appreciative of every member in my locals. They keep me sane. I hope I do a little bit to help them keep them sane, but we really help each other out, and we're going to be starting a little project soon that, especially if you're interested in fighting back against the woke in a real way, you're going to want to become a member. Now, how you get all those features is it does, as Dave Rubin would say, you have to have a little bit of skin in the game. It comes at $5 a month. You can give more if you want to, but $5 is fine. You can do it annually for $50, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time donation of your choice. And guys, locals is the thing that keeps me independent. It's the thing that allows me to always be able to tell you guys the truth. Listen, for the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about FAIR. Like, if you pay attention to my channel at all or pay attention to my social media at all, you know I've been on this rip about FAIR. Now, FAIR is the Foundation Against Racism or Intolerance and Racism. It is it is on like the anti-CRT side of things, but they're not doing good things. And the only reason that I can tell you the truth about what FAIR is doing and how they're impacting people who have gone out of their way to help fight this fight, the only way I can do that is because of the support that I receive in locals. It keeps me independent, which means I'm not beholden to anyone. A lot of people in this space, if they're a journalist for even a conservative publication, they're beholden to the people writing their check. They're beholden to the people that are funding them. They're beholden to the fundraisers. A lot of people are very scared to speak out about FAIR because FAIR will get you blacklisted from the major donors, and there aren't that many major donors in this space. I'm not afraid of that because I'm not looking to raise money for anything big, at least not at the moment. Maybe it'll bite me in the ass later. Who the hell knows? But like, you guys help me stay independent so I can always tell you the truth, no matter if it's good news, no matter if it's bad news. So please, if you enjoy the work I do, if you enjoy the content I put out there, if you enjoy that I'll tell you, the real deal no matter what, please consider supporting me in locals because it is the thing that makes this all possible. All right, let's get that banner down. We don't need that right now. We can do a little ticker. There we go. We can do that. Please mount that like button if you haven't already. We don't smash the like button on this channel. We mount the like button. Now, I did mention that this is happy hour, which means that I will be drinking. I don't drink often. I usually drink only on Friday happy hours, unless I'm on a plane or something, because, airport drinking doesn't count. Doesn't count. No calories consumed in the airport count. Anyway, I did just come back from the craft beer store and I brought some goodies. And it's funny because when I was checking out, the lady at the checkout said, "Ooh, you've got lots of chocolatey beers today." And I was like, that actually kind of goes perfectly with the presentation we're going to discuss. But I swear that wasn't the intent. It just worked out that way. So let me see. Let me show you guys what I have. I have a chocolate peanut butter stout. This is from Smutty Nose. I have a wood chop chocolate stout, also from Smutty Nose. Chocolate stouts I find can be like hit or miss. Sometimes chocolate stouts are like the best thing that you've ever had, and sometimes they kind of suck. I'm not going to drink all these beers, by the way. I'm just showing you what I bought. Like, maybe they'll get drunk later. What usually happens in happy hour with my leftover beer is I put it in the fridge with the full intention of maybe drinking it like another day, and then my husband drinks it. And then he apologizes and he says he'll go to the beer store to replenish it. I have Southern Tier Nitro Creme Brulee. I haven't had their creme brulee beer in a while. I had it several years ago, and I remember it being really, really sweet. But I haven't had it in a while, and I really like Southern Tier. Southern Tier is one of my favorite breweries. It's in like upstate New York. So if you're in that area, definitely try Southern Tier. Like, all their stuff is good. And then I also have this s'mores one, which I think I've had this before, but I don't remember. Let me see. I have. This is interesting. A cinnamon toast stout. Cinnamon toast. This is from Lone Pine. I've never had this. An imperial stout brewed with Vietnamese Vietnamese cinnamon and vanilla extract. So that's promising. But the one I'm going to start with I about let out a scream of glee when I saw this beer at the beer store, because fluffernutters are my favorite thing ever. Who likes fluffernutters in the chat? How can you not like a fluffernutter? I haven't had a fluffernutter in a really long time. Like, I think the last time I had a fluffernutter was actually like when I had just like, I had the thing of fluff sitting in my like cabinet for a while, but it was like a year old or something. And I was like, I don't know if this fluff is good anymore. And then I looked inside and it seemed fine. And it had like crystallized. And so I had that fluff on the fluffernutter. It was the best thing. It was the best fluffernutter ever. And they have fluffernutter beer. If this beer sucks, I'm going to be so okay. Rachel says she's never heard of fluffernutters. Dude, this is about to blow your mind. Fluffernutters are a sandwich with peanut butter and fluff, marshmallow fluff, like you buy in the big white tub at the supermarket. It's amazing. It's the best thing that has ever been concocted in the history of humanity. And if this beer sucks, I'm going to be really disappointed, because it's a peanut butter and fluff flavored stout. And this is the one we're going to start with. Normally I give you guys a vote, but I'm so excited about this beer that we're starting with this. I'm making a preemptive decision. Let's see. Let's pour it. Both my big wine glasses are dirty, so I have to have a smaller wine glass. Still a pretty big wine glass, though. Let's see. Am I going to be able to fit it all in? That's what I like about my bigger wine glasses. I can fit it all in. It's going to be close. Oh, look at that perfection. Holy cow. So this is the head. This is where all the aroma is. Like a relatively small head. Cheers, guys. Happy Friday. We made it. Definitely smells like peanut butter. Let's see. It's a good stout. I'm not sure I taste the fluffernutter, but we're gonna let that settle for a minute. Maybe once it maybe it just takes a second. All right, who is ready to watch our presentation for today? Let's see. I got to get us set up here. I have some experience pouring beers. I've never bartended before, but I didn't become a beer snob overnight. I had to drink a lot of beer to become a beer snob. All right, let's get started. Conversations in Black feminist practice. All right, guys. If the sound doesn't work, it should be working fine. But if it doesn't work, please let me know in the chat. Let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is S.A. Smythe. I'm an assistant professor of gender studies and African American studies at UCLA. And I'm just here to welcome you to this event on Black queer radicalisms, which is presented to us by UCLA's Black Feminism Initiative, or BFI, with support from the Bunch Center for African American Studies. The BFI is an experimental collaboration between faculty and graduate students, anchored by the Faculty and Graduate Working Group, which meets monthly to discuss Black feminist ideas and practice. Already I'm going off script to say that this was not possible without some phenomenal grad students that we'll be hearing from one of today, but also Sarah Haley's vision and direction and her teaching, which was the first vehicle for this space. BFI also offers fellowship.
So I just have a dumb question. Like, why does there need to be, I understand that this is something that popped up, I think, in like probably the 70s. All this stuff really started getting like going in the 70s. But like why does there need to be a specific brand of feminism that's about Black feminism? Like, I understand, and I'm not gonna question that Black people do probably have like a fundamentally different experience in our society. Of course, that depends on a variety of other factors, not the least of which is your socioeconomic status. But you know what? People have different experiences. That's fine. But like, if we're talking about feminism, why are we then creating subcategories of feminism? Oh, Neb and Dog, you probably know the money. And it's always about money. You're probably right about that. Maybe they'll explain.
Ships and hosts events. It operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples, to whom we give gratitude for the chance to host virtually here today. So I'm just going to offer a couple of the bios for our esteemed speakers, starting with in the order that we'll hear people. So Charlene Carruthers is a doctoral student in the Department of African American Studies at Northwestern, with research investments in Black feminist political economies, abolition, and the role of cultural work in the Black radical tradition. At Northwestern, she's also a cluster fellow in the Gender and Sexuality Studies program. Carruthers is a political strategist, cultural worker, and community organizer for racial, gender, and economic justice. As the founding national director of Black Youth Project 100, or BYP 100, she's worked alongside hundreds of young activists to build a national base of activists in a member-led organization of 18 to 35-year-olds dedicated to creating justice and freedom for all people. In 2020, she was named a Freedom Scholar by the Margaret Casey Foundation, placing her in a category with some of the most daring and impactful writers and organizers around.
So you know what's like, it's always interesting to me, or always like funny, like people write their own bios, right? And so this woman's writing a bio saying she received the Freedom Prize and that placed her in a new category among all of these amazing intellectuals. It's like, I couldn't live with myself if I wrote a bio like that. I would feel so weird. And I remember the time, I get like a fair bit of grief online for using like doctor in my Twitter handle, which, I just thought it was funny. but people take it seriously. But like, it's for real. Like when my first book came out, there was like, I wasn't using the doctor title at all. And then I got a stern talking to by people who were like, you have to present yourself as an intellectual and all this stuff and blah 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 blah. And that's when I started using the doctor title, but also because it did actually help when I was doing conference presentations. In terms of like, there's a distinct difference, and this always bothered me. There was a distinct difference in the amount of the amount that people actually listened to what I was saying when I used the doctor title versus not. But it always made me, I was like, eh, about the whole thing. But I would never write, like, I guess it's a really long-winded way of saying, like, I always feel really uncomfortable saying, like, she's done this and she's done that and she's done this other thing. And it's like, people do stuff. Like, we don't need to make it seem like a bigger deal than it is. I don't know. I just think that bios that are written like that are crazy, especially when you consider that the person it's about probably wrote it themselves.
Charlene is the author of Unapologetic. I should have taken it from my room and held it up here. Unapologetic, a Black, queer, and feminist mandate for radical movements. One example of her broader practice of telling more complete stories about Black feminist and queer lives and radicalism. Then we'll hear from C. Riley Thornton, who is a professor of English and has an appointment with the Center for Gender and Sexuality Studies at...
I always find it a little bit alarming too, just how much like we've noticed this like the past couple of weeks, especially that woman that introduced Kendi. What was that, last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago? Like, they're always so enamored of these people, of these intellectuals. Guys, can we please? And even like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it. The intellectuals in the anti-woke movement are just as bad as this. I've had it with intellectuals. But like the enamoring that people have, like even the intellectual dark web. And it's like, obviously, like, I like Dave Rubin like quite a bit, and I consider him like a friend, and like he's a cool guy. I don't put him in the same category as like a lot of the intellectual dark web people who are just like so impressing themselves at being an intellectual. I even look at like Calvin Robinson, who I don't really know much about, but he was like tweeting on Twitter earlier about the Great Reset and retweeted a tweet that Prince Charles sent like a year and a half ago, as though he just discovered it. It was like, can we please, intellectuals, have a conversation now about the Great Reset before it's too late? And I was like, dude, if you're just starting to have a conversation now about the Great Reset, retweeting a tweet that Prince Charles sent a year and a half ago that you have just discovered like it's something new, it is already too late. No amount of intellectualization is going to get us out of this problem. The intellectuals are one of the groups of people that put us in this position in the first place, because all they did was intellectualize about the woke and about how this is going to go horribly and terribly wrong. And then none of them did anything. They just kept intellectualizing as though intellectualization was going to save us all. It's not going to save us all. It's not. We need to start doing shit to save ourselves. I need to start doing more than I'm doing. We're working on a plan. We're working on something that everyone can be involved in. But I'm so sick of people intellectualizing about this stuff as though if we just intellectualize in a new way, that will save us all. If we just ask better questions, that will save us all. No, it will not. I hate to break it to you. No, it will not. Everyone on both sides, on all sides, stop lifting up these people that just talk and then don't do anything. Kelly O'Daniel says, sending you support, YouTube shenanigans, can't comment in live chat, says subscriber mode. Yeah, so guys, I do have subscriber mode turned on in the chat. Kelly, if you subscribe, you should be able to chat it in 5 minutes, but you only have to be subscribed for 5 minutes in order to chat. It's just to keep the white identitarian trolls out, but I do appreciate the super chat, of course. Says subscriber mode. Oh, you're already subscribed? Huh, that's weird. Info icon says can't send messages because you subscribe to this channel while watching a video made for kids. That's really weird, Kelly. Thank you for letting me know. I have no idea what's going on there. Let's continue.
Chicago. There he also directs the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture. Snorton's the author of Nobody's Supposed to Know, Black Sexuality on the Down Low, University of Minnesota Press, and Black on Both Sides, A Racial History of Trans...
This is definitely not made for kids. Hang on, let me even look. I'm going to look in the settings. I'm going to confirm. No, it says no, it's not made for kids in the settings. That's the default for the channel. YouTube shenanigans, YouTube again.
Identity from Minnesota in 2017, and the winner of the John Boswell Prize from the American Historical Association, the William Sanders Scarborough Prize from the Modern Language Association, Lambda Lit Award for Trans Nonfiction, and the Sylvia Rivera Award in Trans Studies from the Center for Lesbian and Gay Studies, and an honorable mention from the American Library Association, Stonewall Book Awards Committee. In a piece for Lambda Lit blog, Snorton wrote that the aim of Black on Both Sides was twofold: to revive strategies for living from the past, as well as to provide a vocabulary of Black and Brown trans life in the present. Part of this vocabulary, Snorton notes, requires thinking about scale.
This is like an 18-hour introduction with bios.
Resist the various ways
where I've been going for 4 minutes.
Which has always been a racial construct, is violently experienced.
Did she just say that gender has always been a racial construct? I'm not going to rewind. I'm pretty sure that's what she said.
Accomplished in Snorton's work makes him an ideal person with whom to think about queer and Black radicalisms. Snorton is also the co-director of Saturation, Race, Art, and the Circulation of Value, a publication from MIT Press and the New Museum, co-edited with Hental Yap. Last but certainly not least, we will hear from our moderator, Ebony Oldham. They are an artist with more than 10 years of organizing experience.
You hear that? It's a they.
And a doctoral student in the UCLA Department of Gender Studies. Ebony's scholarly interests include Black leisure and labor studies, Black interiority, Black feminisms, Black performance studies, mostly at the intersections of Blackness, fatness, ability, and gender.
Wait. The intersections of Blackness, fatness, and gender. Listen, fat studies, we need to revisit fat studies. We've done one happy hour about fat studies. I then went down a rabbit hole that I wish I had never gone down, but it actually showed me just how insane fat studies is. Like, dude. My eyes cannot unsee the things I have seen in going down the rabbit hole of fat studies.
Most recently curated the second annual Black Feminist Summer School, hosted as a part of a love offering in honor of their late grandmother, called the Black Feminist Kitchen, an emerging workshop of working group of activists, artists, and organizers and scholars invested in Black feminist interiority.
Oh my God.
Prior to moving to Los Angeles, Ebony was a founding member and co-organizer for Black Lives Matter Portland chapter, All African People's Revolutionary Party, and as a member of the Global Black Lives Matter Network strategy table.
All African People's Revolutionary Party. That doesn't sound globalist in any way. My God. Speaking of the Great Reset.
So we see here we have a range of Black feminist minds, and I'm really excited to hand it over to them to get into conversation. I did want to add an additional personal note, which is that I'm really honored to be in personal relation to different degrees with all of these people, to consider Riley and Charlene in particular as friends and also constant teachers in Black feminist struggle. I'm really grateful to how they have shaped my own thinking, my own teaching, and my own, let's just say, Virgo tendencies to sort of be more capacious and lean in to the struggle and you know, including its mistakes, its joys, and its culinary possibilities.
Lean into the struggle.
I'm really just grateful to be here today and excited to take it away. Oh, thanks for the compliments in the chat as well. I'm going to hand it over now to Charlene.
Oh, wow. Did you see that?
What an introduction. Thank you so much. Of course, you look gorgeous as always. Thank you to, and you turn your camera off, of course. Thank you to everyone at the Black Feminism Initiative for organizing this and for the invitation. I'm a huge fan of you, Dr. Sarah Haley, and anytime I get to be in the same space as you is an honor. Riley, I'm reading your books in class, so this is a special treat to be in conversation with you. And Ebony, my comrade in struggle and in academia or academic struggle as new PhD students, or not new, PhD students in general. Thank you so much for moderating our conversation. So in my initial time, I am going to do two things, and they are both inspired by this particular political and social moment that we are in right now. I am both troubled and also deeply invested in and optimistic that this moment that we are in, that I feel that we are in right now, my assessment, where Black folks in our everyday lives are struggling to think through how we are going to be with each other.
I just want to note that this presentation took place on May 24th, 2021. So it's not like brand new, but it's not really old either.
In the midst of, in the wake of, depending on where you are, of a global pandemic, of the ongoing crisis of anti-Black and patriarchal violence, of ongoing international strife, conflict, battles, and violence, from here to Ethiopia, to Brazil, to Palestine, all over the globe. And what I am witnessing in movements here in the US amongst Black folks are deep contradictions, deep trouble, deep challenges, and drama, let me just say that as well, and pain. And so I am deeply occupied with questions of how we are with each other, how we want to be with each other, how we currently relate to each other, and how we aspire to be in relationship with one another. And any conversation about Black feminist practice goes back there for me. It goes back to, at its core, how we are with each other on every single plane, how we are with ourselves as individuals, how we are with each other in movements, how we are with children, future generations, and our ancestors.
Oh, hello in France.
And how we are as Judith LeBlanc.
Hello in France. Hey, fun fact. So I'm going to London next month, And I know London, I know England and France are not the same thing. I know I'm not quite that American. But I will be trying to do a meetup in London when I'm there. So pay attention. Maybe people can travel. I don't know. I don't even know what the rules are about traveling like within Europe. But if you are in the vicinity of London, I will be doing a meetup there next month.
Always questions and asks, how are we being good relatives with one another? And so I'm gonna read a little bit from Unapologetic. Maybe I won't read too much from there because I only have about 10 minutes. But to ground what I would like to share, I'll actually start with the June Jordan quote. And so June Jordan was an activist.
I totally thought she said Jim Jordan. I really did. I was like, Jim Jordan.
Brilliant intellectual and writer. And in this essay that she wrote called A Report from the Bahamas, it's something that I think about in the middle of the night. She was writing about interactions that she had with various people on the island, and really was thinking through how, in short terms, not all Black women have the same experiences. And really highlighting some of the class differences that she could see and experience between the various Black folks she interacted with on the island, including a woman who did the work of cleaning up the room that she stayed in while she was there during her stay at a hotel. And June Jordan said that it occurs to me that much organizational grief could be avoided if people understood that partnership in misery does not necessarily provide partnership for change. When we get the monsters off our backs, all of us.
You know what? I'm going to agree with the first part of that quote. Like partnership in misery does not necessarily provide partnership for change. And I think that applies to all of us too, because I'm going to take a good bet that anyone watching this is probably pretty miserable with the way things are in the world, but not that many people are actually willing to do something. So I do not like, there's this talk about like, infighting within like the anti-woke movement. And I kind of used to agree with that. I think I'm changing my tune though. I'm changing my tune because there are people on our side that are miserable with this kind of crap, that are just like they're not helping advance the effort to fight it, and in fact their actions are hindering our efforts to fight it. And so if your actions are going to hinder our efforts to make progress on this, like, we are not partners, we are not friends, we are not. I've had it. And I'm not just talking about the Kathy Youngs of the world, although Kathy Young is a perfect example of this, or Claire Lehman from Quillette. Carrie Smith from Unsafe Space I would put in this category. Absolutely. I've fucking had it. I've had it with these people that are more interested in being social and cultural commentators than they are in actually fixing the fucking problem. We don't need to be best friends if we're moving in the same direction. But if you are getting in my fucking way, I don't care if we agree on this. Don't care. If you're just going to spend all day on Twitter or writing like 4,000 word articles, intellectualizing about all of this as though that hasn't all been done before, don't care. Too bad, so sad. Don't care. Kelly O'Daniel says, me again, unsubscribed and then resubscribed. Problem solved. Thank you for your voice. I truly appreciate your content and your perspective. Much needed. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it. And I used to be of the opinion that we just shouldn't call this shit out, but it's never ending and it doesn't stop. And if you just like, I've tried to ignore this crap for the past year and a half, and it's like, you can try to ignore it all you want and it doesn't go away, and it doesn't get better. And so if it's going to keep happening and it's going to keep effing up what like many of us are trying to do, then we need to start calling it out and say, no, like, you need to change your behavior. Sorry. Oh, I'm knitting the Westnitz yarn along. I'm starting a brioche section, which is probably not the smartest thing to knit while I'm drinking and watching something else, because brioche, if you fuck up brioche, it is not easy to fix. But I'm going to do it anyway.
They want to run in very different directions.
Yes. Yeah.
I believe that.
So I'm starting an Unwoke Army. Justice is going to be in the Unwoke Army. Deb Philman is going to be in the Unwoke Army. Unwokeable is going to be in the Unwoke Army. Kieran's going to be in the Unwoke Army. Many of you are going to be invited to be in the Unwoke Army if you want to, but we were just talking about this earlier today. The number one rule of the Unwoke Army is that whining is not allowed. No whining allowed. You can come, you can contribute, you can do whatever you want to do to contribute to the effort. We're going to come up with brainstorms. We're going to have many options and many different ways that people can contribute. But if you come and you whine and you distract, you're going to be booted out, because we do not have time for whining. And whining only brings everyone else down. Yeah, Adrian's going to be in the Unwoke Army. Georgia, you can be in the Unwoke Army. Everyone's like, so the first thing is I'm going to be scheduling kind of like a brainstorming session with like a smaller group of people, just because like in the larger groups of people, it gets unwieldy really, really quick. Okay. So we're going to do a brainstorming session with a small group of people that I feel understand this, that I feel are genuine, that want to fight back. And so like we're going to have a brainstorm and we're going to come up with a list of things that we need to do. Now that's not going to be a finite list. We can do other stuff too. But what we want to do is we want to come up with different options for people to be able to participate. So one option to participate might be like, you know what? We need to do investigative journalism that journalists on the right and on the left are not doing. We need to help out Justice when Justice is going to like every state's website and trying to suss out what social emotional learning is built into like the state Department of Education on every single state. We can have multiple people doing that. If you want to do investigative journalism, we'll show you how to do it and you can do it. If you want to help code and launch a Wikipedia, you can do that. If you want to do other forms of research, you can do that. If you want to write articles, you can do that. If you want to do trainings to teach other people how to do stuff, you can do that. So there's going to be lots of different options for people to be able to participate. And of course, people can, decide if they want to do something else too. But no whining is the number one rule. And then Kieran says, and we do not retreat. No, we're not retreating. No whining, no retreat. We are fighting to the death. But what's going to be good about this, and I want to do it in a way that's going to be fun and that's going to be lighthearted and things like that. And can a dev contact? Yes, Michael, a dev can contact us. I'll be putting out more information about this. This is something that's really just, it's an idea I've actually been thinking about for a while, but it has really kind of come to a head with a lot of people in the the unwoke anti-CRT space, where we're just kind of really sick of people talking and then not doing anything. And we want to be able to do something and build something to be able to feel good about what we're doing and what we're contributing. So yeah. Am I watching? Yes, I actually have the actively unwoke chat and the main chat and the main chat on my main channel on my screen right now. Yes, swords are allowed. Swords are allowed. Yeah, everyone's going to be able to participate, but number one rule, no whining. No whining. Do not retreat. We'll come up with other rules as well. Anyway, let's keep going. Oh, Nick says, I think you must be knighted in order to be a part of it. I mean, maybe we'll establish our own unwoke knighthood, Nick. Thank you for this stellar idea. I'm not even joking about that. I want to have different ranks for different levels of contribution. I want to have, we can establish a knighthood. Why not? Why can't we establish our own knighthood? What's stopping us?
We are in a moment right now where so much organizational grief is being experienced, is being articulated.
Yeah, dude, we can have nunchucks. Why not? I actually do have nunchucks in my house. I do.
Public ways, private ways, semi-private ways. And much of it, I think, has its root in what doesn't always happen at the beginning of organizing projects. And that is defining and discerning what our partnerships for change are based in beyond our shared misery. And then when we actually win a thing, or we get access to resources, when funders who have been irresponsible and made poor decisions for decades and not investing in Black organizing, all of a sudden want to dump millions of dollars into our organizations without care or concern for what that might do to how we relate to each other. And as a Black feminist, and as being a part of a movement that claims to move through Black feminist values and Black feminist thought and action, I question what else do we have outside of our misery that is driving us to do this work? And
you know
what happens that when
we're going to take inspiration from these people. We're going to make fun of them too. What else do we have besides our misery that's driving us to do this work? You know what? This is actually a really good point. I write about this in the book that's going to be coming out next year. I write about this. I said, like, it is not enough to know that we hate these people. We have to also remember what we're trying to achieve. Like, this is where Republicans fail all the time. They think that if they say, we're not the Democrats suck, we're not the Democrats suck, and they think that if they say that over and over again, that's going to be enough to get people to vote for them. People don't like voting against something. They like voting for something. And so I think one of the things that we probably need to figure out, and I have some ideas about this, I actually wrote a whole thing about it in the book. Again, that's going to come out next year, and you're going to have more info about that soon. I'm told, my publisher tells me it's going to go on pre-sale next month. They haven't given me a date yet. But, you know, in the book, I actually said, here's the vision for what I think we should do. My basic vision, like the elevator pitch is, my vision is I think we need to build a society that is grounded in individualism and meritocracy and color indifference, which means we do not judge people by the color of their skin. We see the color of their skin, but we don't judge people by the color of their skin. What we are interested in is individualism and meritocracy. That's my vision. Maybe you guys have some other ideas, and we should probably talk about that, because we need to have we need to know what our values are. We need to know what we're moving towards, not what we're moving away from. The name of the book is going to be called Actively Unwoke. It's not anywhere yet, but it will be next month, allegedly, according to my publisher.
Get the resources that we have always deserved to do our work. Why are we running in so many different directions? If the monster of lack of resources is no longer on our backs, why are we running in different directions? And why oftentimes are those directions not even meeting or addressing the harms and the needs that people have said that must be addressed, and the harm and the needs that must be met? It's painful. I understand discussing Black feminist theory, you know, discursively, and talking about it as it relates to our material conditions, our material realities. And it is about our very lives. One day I will be an ancestor.
It's a good idea, Patrice.
And I do believe that what I do in this particular plane has something to do with what happens after that. And I don't think, like many Black people across the diaspora, that death is the end. So I'm thinking now, how is it that my practice as a Black feminist shows up in the ways that I am with other people? And I don't have all of the answers, but I do have some of the thoughts that I forwarded in Unapologetic. One of the things that I think relates to the misery, partnership and misery, is what I think Barbara Smith has pointed out and other people have pointed out, is that people took the identity parts in the politics and left the politics behind. And that perhaps what we are seeing over and over again is an identity politics that is not grounded in a material analysis nor material commitments to Black liberation. One that is identity facing, one that is individualistic, and one that doesn't account for how your actual identity is related to your politics. Because me, being a Black woman, being a Black lesbian, a Black queer woman from the South Side of Chicago, add on all of my other things that I have, currently able-bodied, tells you nothing about my politics. It tells you nothing about how I treat other people.
Hey, that's actually, we can agree.
My politics are about not only what I say, but what I also do. How I am. And it is not about perfection, it is about integrity.
So you know how she's defining politics. It's not about left or right. So like, I think we can agree that like what you look like, or any number of intersectionality attributes that you have, whether they're Black, queer, you know, able-bodied, fat, otherwise, whatever the hell, I think we can actually all agree that that is not an indicator of your politics, or should not be an indicator of your politics. But she's not using politics in that way. That's not what she means. I think what she means is whether or not you're an activist. So what she's saying is, you can't look at someone with lots of different oppression points and just assume that they're an activist. They have to do stuff in order to be an activist. That's what she means when she says politics. I'm virtually positive of it.
It's not about being perfect all the time. And so I'll close here and as we move over to Riley's brilliance and just implore us to think in this conversation about Black feminist practice, the moment that we're in now, what Black feminist thought can we lean into from the people who come before us, the people who are doing this work now, with the folks to come and our very own selves in mind, and that it is not enough for us to write down.
Just real quick, I want to say thank you to Paul over on Rockfin for the tip. I appreciate it. I also want to say hi to everyone watching on Rockfin and Odyssey and, the alt tech platforms. Please make sure you're subscribed on Rockfin and Odyssey if you are not already. Odyssey's honestly my favorite, but Rockfin's really great too. And make sure you're supporting people on those platforms as well, because you're going to find out actually a lot more information on platforms like that than you are on YouTube. So please make sure you're there as well. Justice says Carlin's membership card in the Unwoke Army should be barbed knitting needles. We'll get someone to design us a good logo. It probably won't be knitting needles. I don't know. We'll see.
Things or have campaigns about abolition if we are policing, we are cops with the people in our lives. We are nasty with the people in our lives. And we ourselves don't even believe in doing the work to be in right relationship with one another. Because I don't understand Black feminism if we are not centralizing the ways that we are with each other. So awesome.
So she just said doing the work. It's about being an activist. That's what she means.
Wow. I am so even more excited about the conversation that's about to take place. There's so much synchronicity.
Wait. What is the gender of this person? Is this a man or a woman? I'm sure it's a they. But I think it's I think it's a woman. That's probably taking testosterone. I could be wrong. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I think it's a woman. I'm sure their pronoun is they. I'm sure I don't know.
In terms of what we've been thinking about, Charlene, I want to start by saying just many, many thanks to the Black Feminism Initiative and Sarah Haley for the invitation.
Wait.
To all.
Why are we having people speak at a panel about feminism of any variety that are not women? I know there's a they in there somewhere. Why are we not only having women speak about feminism? It would seem to me to be a pretty feminist thing to do to only have women speaking about feminism. Or have we redefined feminism now? I'm sure we probably have. Maybe someone will give us a definition.
All the staff at Black Feminism Initiative, Lachey, Ariel, for the fantastic handling of logistics, S.A. Smides for that generous introduction, our moderator for this conversation, Edmund Oldham, and to, of course, my co-panelist, Charlene Carruthers. I feel gratitude both for the opportunity to participate in this conversation and for all of the conversations that we've been having over time. Also, Charlene, I had the privilege of teaching Unapologetic in an advanced undergrad seminar on theories of gender and sexuality, and it became a touchstone in our conversation throughout the quarter about social movements and feminist genealogy.
See, one of the things that's going to need to happen long term, how these people got so powerful is by teaching small groups of people over an extended period of time. Like, there's going to have to be, if we're being honest, and you all know my preference is to blow up public education. I think it should be completely defunded. I am extremely accelerationist in this regard. I'll take school choice in the meantime. But the reality is that like one of the things that's going to need to happen, and this is a long term, this is not like a weekend project, is there's going to have to be a whole new different type of teacher training that is created to train teachers not to be woke. We're going to have to train an entire new generation of teachers to not be effing woke. And it could also be like one of those things where, you know what, maybe like if the requirement to be a teacher in a public schools until we're able to demolish public schools, figuratively, not literally, not advocating for violence or destruction, but like if a requirement to be a teacher in a public school is that you go through one of their, you know, reputable teacher programs, then you know what we need to do? We need to put a whole bunch of conservatives, or like maybe not just conservative, but like not crazy leftists through those programs, and then provide them additional support like outside of it to help them maintain their sanity, to help them make sure that they don't get indoctrinated into this bullshit, and make sure that they can get to the place where they are teachers without having become this, whatever this is. That's one of the things that needs to happen. They've taken over education. That's part of why we're in this problem in the first place. Yeah, Benjamin says, next Coke link in course, be less woke. One would hope. One would hope.
Technologies of care. So I also want to publicly, and hopefully this is not the first time you've heard it from me, thank you for that work and for your work generally. So in preparing brief opening remarks for this conversation, I began by reflecting on the title. The juxtaposition of queer and radicalism recalls the title of my colleague, Kathy Cohen's essay, Punks, Bulldaggers, and Welfare Queens, which in the subtitle poses a question about the radical potential of queer politics. There, she invites us to reconsider.
Remember, politics means activism.
Queer politics. And this is in many ways echoing some of what Charlene has offered. But what Cohen's asks us to do is to think beyond a kind of politics of identification and toward an attunement to a reading of power, in which racialized gender and racialized sexuality become the grounds of consideration rather than something like sexual object choice. Cohen's noted essay is of great importance to the conversation we're having in terms of content, but also in terms of titular form. That is, that the question and questioning is part of a radical political protocol. We might also think of how Frantz Fanon concludes Black Skin, White Mass with a final prayer, "Oh, my body, make of me a man who always questions." In this vein, we might ask, what is radical? And as an adjective, and especially according to the Oxford English Dictionary, and this is particularly in as it pertains to change or action, it's defined as, quote, a relating to or affecting of the fundamental nature of something, far-reaching and thorough. And then as a noun, it's described as a person who advocates thorough or complete political or social reform. And I'm struck by the irony here of using the term reform to define what it means to be radical, as it raises questions about the insufficiencies of language and underscores the urgency in nurturing our radical imaginations. Since COVID-19, and in the midst of the uprisings in the summer of 2020, I've been sitting with a question. How are you, how are we going to show up in the new world that we are working to create with each other?
The new world.
And actually,
hang on. How are we going to show up in the new world that we are creating for each other? Like, these people honestly believe that their work is going to usher in a grand utopia where everyone can be free, where everyone can just be free and be happy and be themselves and live however they want to live. That's actually what these people think that they're doing. They have deluded themselves through their lack of understanding of history and also human nature to believe that that is the reality that they are creating. This is real to them. Like, really try to wrap your head around this for a moment. This is real to them.
This question on social media in the wake of the beating of Ayanna Dore, And as I was grappling with resentment and disappointment and grief in the aftermath of the police murders of George Floyd and Tony McDade, as well as the national circulation of the earlier police killing of Breonna Taylor. And I find it important to name resentment and disappointment here because they also name the other feelings that emerge in relation to the uneven distribution of public grief and outrage, which seems to reinforce that despicable linking of grievability and value. We continue to live with compounding grief. And the questions that my collaborator Jen Haratwan and I posed in Trans Necropolitics still feel relevant, in which we asked, what
is necropolitics? Trans necropolitics? What is that? Does anyone know? Can someone Google that? Trans necropolitics. I think that's what they said. What does that mean?
What are the seductions for a trans activism for whom traumatized citizenship is more than merely an identitarian pitfall?
I just want to note that the literal title of this is Black Feminist, Conversations in Black Feminism. And what are we talking about right now? Trans. Why are we talking about trans activism in a thing that is literally titled Conversations in Black Feminism? Because these people want to erase women. Kieran, is this true or are you making this up? Because sometimes you say things to be funny. And I'm not sure, I'm unclear about whether you're like, this is real or if you are being funny. He says, necropolitics is the use of social and political power to dictate how some people may live and how some must die. It's not that I don't trust you, Kieran. I just this sounds like something you would say to be funny. Okay, he claims that this is true. Someone please fact check Kieran. I believe him. Don't get me wrong. Necropolitics is the use of social and political power to dictate how some people may live and how some must die. Wow.
A key condition of its own emergence. And what would a trans politics and theory look like?
Oh God, it has a Wikipedia.
Such murderous inclusion.
Holy shit.
This informs the questions that guided Black on Both Sides, but also all of the future writings and my political work. That is, and to perhaps say it slightly differently, what are the theories and politics that emerge from a different formulation of value that we might live with and use to resist the dominant biopolitical, necropolitical modes of making sense of Black, queer, and trans life?
I mean, okay, can we just reflect on this for a second? So, first off, this trans person who has inserted themselves into the discussion of Black feminism, which feminism should be about women so far as I'm concerned, but like now we're having a conversation about trans activism and also the politics of who should live and who should die. They're literally talking about politics of who should die. And they think they're going to usher in a grand communist utopia that will save us all when they're talking about the politics of who should die? Who do you think they think should die? I'm going to bet everyone in this chat is on a list. I'm definitely on a list. I am definitely going to the gulag. There's no escaping it. Some of you are going to be in the gulag with me. Everyone in the Unwoke Army is going to the gulag. We should all just start getting used to the idea. But at least we're going to go down fighting because we're never going to retreat. No retreat. No surrender.
And yet the question, who are you? Who are we going to be in the new world we are working to create with each other, is also about remembering that we already inhabit those other worlds. And it guides a way of thinking about how we treat each other. This is not necessarily about recentering a self, but about recognizing that the outcome of radical imaginings and collective work is that everything is transformed. This is also meant for me deepening my practice as a student of abolition and to approach political work as a student, that is with a sense of uncertainty, which I've begun to also think about as a radical potential. And especially as I think about what it means to work at the limits and against the politics of colonial gender, I wonder about how uncertainty could serve as an orientation that deepens what we mean by solidarity. That is, that we refuse the normative grounds of thinking according to trans and cis and move from a non-binary place. One that doesn't presume.
So now they're active in the Black Feminist lecture. This person is literally arguing that we just get rid of all gender entirely and we move to a non-binary place. Do you guys catch that? Let's just rewind just slightly,
That is, with a sense of uncertainty, which I've begun to also think about as a radical potential. And especially as I think about what it means to work at the limits and against the politics of colonial gender, I wonder about how—
against the politics of colonial gender. So they're going to make the argument that people who believe that there are men and women, and listen, I have no problem with non-binary people. Like I don't. I do not care. Like if that's what you feel, that's like whatever. If that's how you want to live your life, it is none of my business. But she's like, I'm sorry. They are going to make the argument that colonization means acknowledging that gender exists at all. And that if you're not moving from a non-binary place, then you are a colonizer.
Uncertainty could serve as an orientation that deepens what we mean by solidarity. That is, that we refuse the normative grounds of thinking according to trans and cis and move from a non-binary place.
So solidarity, in order to act as a good intersectionalist, to act in solidarity, you just have to just ignore all gender because all gender is a social construct and come from a non-binary place. How very feminist.
One that doesn't presume knowing in order to act alongside and with, that forgoes knowability as a precondition for relating. That is perhaps another way of naming abolition as a total praxis, a radical way of worlding and doing, in which the question of how we inhabit and get there cannot be known in advance. And the outcome, as a kind of final prayer, is that everyone and everything is transformed. Thanks.
Okay, so I want to, so this person in the chat, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, says, don't respect its pronouns, call it it. I do not think doing that is the best strategy. It's like you know, listen, again, we talked about having a vision for the world we want to live in. My vision for the world I want to live in is one where we extend basic respect and courtesy for people who are not trying to exert power over us. Like this person would try to exert power over us. I have no problem using the pronouns that like normal people want. I really don't. I prefer not to use the weird stuff, but like if someone wants to be called they, fine. I don't really care. I would call Blair White she. I do call Blair White she. Like it like I do not think that purposefully using like I don't think that being purposefully inconsiderate is going to win us any battles. I just don't. I think it makes people look like assholes. I do. It's an easy thing. And most of the time, listen, most trans people are not this person. Most trans people just want to be able to live their lives and be happy. That's all that they want. And I feel so bad for them sometimes because they get sucked into this crazy trans activist reality and they get painted like that when they're not. So I'm not going to do the pronoun thing. You make your own choices, but I don't think it's a responsible way to go about it. I just don't. How people want to live their lives is no one's business, you know? They're adults, who cares?
Hi, it's so good to see both of you.
Good to see you too, Ebony.
Yes. Well, thank you both for such generous, engaging, and grounding opening remarks. I think I speak for everyone at the Black Feminism Initiative when I share that We're so excited and thrilled to, witness both you, Charlene, and Riley in conversation today on Black feminist practice, but also thinking about Black queer radicalism.
If someone tries to make me use pronouns related to bog gender, I won't do it. Bog gender is not a real thing. Fae gender is not a real thing. Deer gender is not a real thing. Sorry. But if it's normal, I don't care.
So I just wanted to begin by asking if you both have any comments on each other's opening remarks. Otherwise, I'm also happy to open with a question.
Cloud gender.
Well, I would love to ask Charlene to tell us more about, like, what are the conditions for partnerships and change?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great question. So the first thing, I always go to questions first, because one thing that I had to learn the hard way probably as an organizer is to get curious and to ask questions, and for it to begin from that place as opposed to a place of assumptions. And one place that people can start that in partnership in creating partnerships is through moving through a minimum of 2 questions. The first question is asking yourself, who am I? What do I actually care about? What are the things that both get me out of the bed in the morning? And what are the things that keep me in the bed in the morning, right? Both metaphorically and literally, physically as well. Psychically, spiritually, all of those things that move us and the things that weigh us down. And then the second question is Ella Baker's question. Who are your people? Who are my people? Being clear about who you are connected to, who can hold you responsible, who are you in relationship with, what lineages do you see yourself in connection with, or in connection to? Because if I am not clear about at least the core of who I am, no matter what words I use, no matter if there's clear language for it, no matter if it could be pinned down very easily. And if I am not clear about who I'm in relationship with, even who I desire to be in relationship with, and also who am I responsible to and for, then that impacts how I'm entering any sort of relationships to create the kind of change that I want to see in the world. And so it's both an awareness of self. So I do believe that Black people have interiority and a sense of self, and can cultivate that.
Did she just say that she believes Black people have inferiority? Is that what she just said?
Relationships to create the kind of change that I want to see in the world. And so it's both an awareness of self. So I do believe that Black people have interiority and a sense of self, and
interiority?
Can cultivate that, and a sense of who and whose you are. It's like one of my Southern friends would say.
Interiority.
Like, whose are you? Who are you? To whom do you belong? All of those things. And then we can talk about more, because the last thing I'll say is that I can't hold you accountable to something, first of all, you ain't never said you were going to do. And I cannot hold you accountable if I'm not actually in relationship with you.
You know what?
In the ways that I believe in accountability.
Listen, I can say that, like, I probably don't agree with this woman much, but she's actually being very wise in the way that she's talking about this. Like, you can't hold people accountable when they haven't agreed to do something. You can't hold people accountable when they haven't agreed to any sort of relationship with you. That is very true. I think this is a mistake that a lot of people make, is like they think that okay, Twitter I know is the worst example of everything, but like people complain all the time when I block them on Twitter. Like, dude, I never decided to be in a relationship with you. I never decided that. I do not consent. And I can't hold those people accountable because they didn't agree not to be jackasses. The only way that I can hold them accountable is by, severing any sort of contact. That's all I can do. You're gonna be a dick, then you get blocked.
I punish you without being in a relationship to you? Absolutely. Can I dismiss you? Can I drag you? Can I do work to deplatform you? Sure. I can do all those things, but that's not the actual kind of.
I love that she just admitted that she's going to do work to deplatform people that she disagrees with, which is not the same as blocking them, by the way. Not the same thing. Not the same. Getting someone's account canceled is not the same thing as blocking them. And that's what she just said. Like, am I going to do the work to deplatform you? Yeah, probably. Wow.
Accountability that I'm seeking, to me, that's punishment. So those are just some of the things that, for me, that foreground what it means to be in partnership. And again, it's not about perfection for me. It's about moving with integrity. But I had a question for you. A comment for you, Riley.
Okay, great.
Look at how organic that was.
What you are thinking through now and doing now is moving you to think more deeply about your commitments to abolition.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share more about that? And the reason why I asked that question is because I think a lot of people move around acting like they woke up as abolitionists. So I didn't.
Right.
I'd love to hear more about your journey towards practicing politics.
No, thanks. That's a wonderful question. And also, in some ways, it allows me to echo some of the things that you were saying about what does it mean to, live in a world where accountability is the structure for how we hold each other, rather than, I think, the kind of modes of punishment. But, I think in some sense, like, I certainly identify it as an abolitionist far before
how are they
really
defining abolition?
Dedicated myself to be a student of abolition, and in some ways that's like a kind of shorthand that isn't completely true, but rather that I think that there's something about how I have been living with COVID that has really been about what does it mean to get serious in study, and abolition has been foremost among them. And so I've been so grateful to be able to log into Zooms and listen to Joyce James and Miriam Makaba and Ruthie Gilmore and folks who have already been named and who are part of this this conversation today, where it has been about I think in some ways it's about a kind of double process of learning. There's a thing that one learns enough to be able to attest, but then there's a thing that you learn that is actually working on you. And I think that that's kind of the space that I've wanted abolition to kind of live in my body and in my practice. And it was so profound to me.
Wait, hang on. What's Sununu quote in Breitbart? The Sununu quote in Breitbart today sounds like these fools apart. What did Sununu say in Breitbart? Does anyone know? Can anyone tell me? I don't know. I haven't really been paying attention today to New Hampshire shit. Sununu's such a dick. The GOP is going to get exactly what they deserve for running him for Senate. Like, it's not official yet, but they're going to run him for Senate, and they're going to get exactly what they deserve.
The way that you kind of opened and threaded your opening remarks with these deep questions about what does it mean to be in relation? How do we show up with integrity? And I think for me, abolitionist thinkers are giving us some of those tools, which is also to say, and this is the last thing that I want to say about it at this moment, but like, it's also to say that, in being a student, I am also inhabiting the world of abolition that is being called for. And so I try to hold those things also as kind of like the container of a world that is both filled with violence and grief, and that is also filled with like transformation and inspiration and new kinds of imaginaries. So I'll pause there, but I really appreciate just like how folks are moving together, that I feel like I'm really hearing in this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Oh my goodness. So I think the next question is perfect for thinking about both of your comments together. And really, it's a question on Black feminism. So both of your books, Black on Both Sides, A Racial History of Trans Identity, and also Unapologetic, a Black, queer, and feminist mandate for radical movements, is deeply rooted in...
Did Sununu say something about Republicans who are anti-mandate? Hang on a second. Hang on. I'm sorry. We need to take a quick pause because I need to understand what Chris Sununu said today in Breitbart. Hang on. Sorry. Sununu, Breitbart. What did he say? Am I not spelling Breitbart? God damn it. I'm not spelling Breitbart correctly. That might be the problem. Breitbart, search, Sununu. Here it is. Found it. Found it. Holy shit. Hang on. Let me show you guys. Let me show you. New Hampshire Governor Sununu, when crazy anti-vax Republicans come, slam that door shut. Now, as a reminder, last week, this is not what this is about. We're going to get back to the video in a second. Sorry, we're detouring slightly. Last week, New Hampshire became the only state in the country to not accept the federal bribe of I don't know if it's different other places. In our case, it was $27 million to push vaccines on the citizenry. Now, of course, you should always refer to the CDC for all vaccine related questions. But we sent the money back. No other state has, not Florida, not Texas, because it came with strings attached. Governor Chris Sununu said Thursday on CNN's Out Front that he deals with crazy Republican state representatives who are against the coronavirus vaccine by slamming the door shut. Burnett said, "You're very pro-vaccine yourself in terms of telling people to get it and have clashed with Republican lawmakers in your state about COVID. They're not the only ones saying really, really bizarre stuff, but they have been saying really, really bizarre stuff. Here's some of what they've said about the vaccine." In the video, State Representative Al Baldassaro said, "I see studies." I can't read this on YouTube. I'm sorry. I can't. I see some stuff that I don't like. I can't read this on YouTube. Sununu says, "Look, Aaron, when crazy comes knocking at the door, you've got to slam it shut. That's all there is to it. I don't care what party you're from. One of the reasons New Hampshire has been so successful in managing the pandemic, blah, 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 blah." Oh, really, Chris? Oh, really? Chris Sununu's a Democrat. The GOP is supporting this. Let's return to our video. Consult the CDC for all vaccine-related information. I'm not a doctor. Don't listen to me. I'm not giving any advice. I got vaccinated the other day. I am not anti-vax. I literally got vaccinated the other day. I know that disappoints people, but I'm going to England next month and I don't want to sit in quarantine for 2 weeks. So I'm not saying, I am setting the example YouTube wants me to set.
Black feminisms. Can you both share more about how Black feminisms have anchored your work? What Black feminist genealogies have been instructive to both of you in developing your theorizations and also practice of Black feminisms?
Should I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I think about the very first person I ever met who intentionally talked to me about Black feminism, and the person who gave me books that were Black feminist books, and I had no idea what I was even being given. It was my mom's friend when I was, I don't know, a preteen. She gave me Toni Morrison's book, The Bluest Eye. she gave me April Sinclair's Coffee Will Make You Black. I'm like, do you know something I don't know? Like, did she know something I didn't know at the time? Like, maybe. She was giving me all these books and I just devoured them. And I hadn't heard the term Black feminism, Black feminisms. I didn't know about this global quilting and constellation of Black feminist thought and action.
What?
And then it wasn't until I was really in college, I think is when I first started to learn more about that. And that was Dr. Venus Evans Winters, who I talk about in the book. And she is the first like self-avowed Black feminist I ever met in my life, who called themselves that. But she wasn't the first Black feminist I ever met in my life, if that makes sense. And so I began to have conversations with her. And then much of what I learned about Black feminisms, both here in the US and globally, has come from being in movement spaces with people who are committed to study. As Riley was just talking about, committed to study. And that study then, hopefully, it don't always pan out this way, becomes embodied, shows up in practice. And so I absolutely situate both my theoretical lineage, my practice lineage, the cultural work that I do, I don't know, as far back as Sojourner Truth, of course.
Dude, I'm gonna do you one better. There's legal weed in Massachusetts. And not, I mean, it's decriminalized here. Like, no one's getting arrested for it. Medical is freaking legal, but like, what the hell, man? What the hell? They have one job.
River Collective. And even when I actually read her work, her interviews, read her thoughts and read about Marsha P. Johnson, the Black feminism of that one could associate with Marsha P. Johnson is one that does not fit neat buckets or neat structure. But
just as a reminder, if you believe that what these people are saying is word salad, you can fill the chat with salad emojis. You can do the normal salad emoji, or channel members get access to a special premium salad emoji, because I don't like the normal salad emoji. So I went and got a premium salad emoji that I like a lot better. But if you want to fill the chat with salad emojis every single time that these people are doing nothing more than word salad that means nothing, you go right ahead. It is your life. It is your freedom to put salad emojis in the chat.
One that is absolutely pay this shit no mind Black feminism. Like she didn't have time for a politic that was not one of urgency. And so that's what I think about how I'm situated. And I also think about people like Dr. Maya Angelou. And while many people know her for her poetry, she was an amazing cook. She was also a filmmaker. I think about Black feminist cultural work and how, for me, I'm like, I'm not the first person to think about being an organizer, an intellectual, a scholar, a filmmaker, a writer, a farmer, all these things. I'm not the first. And so it's so big, it's so much bigger than me. And that's exciting to me. And that's the kind of what do I want, constellation that I want to be a part of. Something that is always already, as our good people in the Academy say, global, diasporic, and something that is always already about the liberation of ourselves and everyone, and also about the very planet that we live on.
I have no idea what she just said. Yeah, I saw someone congratulate me in the chat earlier for like being able to process. I have no idea what that woman just said. Now, granted, I was also tweeting about how Chris Sununu is a Democrat. But I have no idea what that... We need a salad fingers icon! Oh my god! Oh my god! We need a salad. Yes, Kiri got there before me. We need a salad fingers emoji. Holy shit. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Absolutely. I'm gonna work on that. That's even better. That's even better than premium salad emoji. We need a salad fingers emoji. If you don't know what salad fingers is, Google it. It's awesome. Salad fingers was the best. That's a great idea.
I really, really resonate with that. I was thinking about and in reflecting on what Charlene was offering, that like political work and scholarship are all necessarily citational. And the work of citations is both to show how one arrives at a place, but also to invite others, invite those that you want to talk to. And so, I love the way you frame the question, Ebony, around, what's been instructed to the theorization and practice, because in many ways I have both learned and continue to learn, but also have been given many lives in Black feminism. And it makes me think a little bit about another book from Toni Morrison in Beloved and the phrase "friends of my mind," which refers to, or as the character is describing it, ends with this idea that friends of one's mind gather you. And I always think about that, like that resonance of what does it mean to get gathered, to be gathered, which is to be held, but also to be held accountable, And so I was thinking, like, if I were to name out, there are so many names, including Sojourner Truth and Kambahi, that I also feel deeply shaped by. But I was also thinking about the ways I've been shaped by the Audre Lorde Project, and by the Sylvia Rivera Project, and by the Scholars for Social Justice, and by BYP 100, and by the kind of places of gathering of minds who are also organizers, who are also creative people, that I have learned deeply from. But I'm also thinking about the kind of, in terms of the work,
like, it's just all about their lived experience. Like, dude, no one knows what your lived experience is. So when you come on a seminar where you're supposed to be teaching other people and you say things like, I just need to think about how I have been shaped by such and such and such and such and such and such and such, like, it doesn't mean anything to other people. Hang on. The screen's gonna flicker for a second because I have to fix something, but I'll be right back. Hang on. Okay. Sometimes my computer likes to put my toolbar on the other screen, and I don't like it, and I have to do it. I have to fix it when they do it. Okay. Alexandra Martin says, cheers, Dr. K. Keep up the good work. Your strength and endurance are my inspiration. I hope everyone has mounted that like button. Thank you, Alexandra. Guys, if you have mounted that like button and you are a channel member, you can put the mounting emoji in the chat, which is a heart, but with little devil horns, because it's just like a little bit, just a little bit naughty, just a little bit. And please make sure you like and subscribe. And guys, please make sure you join Locals as well. Even if you just sign up for a free membership, it'll get you on my email list. I'm going to be sending out information about the Unwoke Army once we kind of like, get just a slightly bit more organized. So the best way to do it is to go to kb.locals.com to sign up for a free account. Just get into the community. You don't have to pay for anything if you don't want to. That's fine. But please make sure you're signed up.
Certainly, I am deeply inspired by the insights of Hortense Spillers and the community of scholars who work to grapple with that work. Saidia Hartman and the community of scholars who sit with that tradition. Joy James, Denise Ferrer de Silva, Alexis Pauline Gumbs, Harriet Jacobs, Savannah Shange.
Doesn't mean anything.
I've been moving with and
salad.
Gilmore,
I've been so moved by these
Miriam
people.
Makaba,
My
Cece
lived
McDonald,
experience
Raquel
isn't
Willis,
being moved
Trevor
by these
Ellison,
people, but the audience doesn't know why they're so important.
And Cohen and Redmond and Keeling and
Guy look at all these people that mean so much to me, but I'm not explaining why.
And as I
so
learned,
it means nothing to the audience because I'm only interested in my own lived experience.
Really is, to me, a kind of other mode of thinking about the ampersand and the ellipses. That like there's also so many friends.
She's having deep thought about grammar, about punctuation. Not even grammar, punctuation. She's, theys, sorry. Theys, I don't even know what, I think it's they, I don't know. Josh, oh my gosh, says, ever seen the documentary Uncle Tom? Shows all the reverse psychology of you are oppressed by the Y people, causing self-segregation sigh. I haven't seen it. I've heard it's really good though. But like, can we just like appreciate the fact that they just said that they were having deep reflections about punctuation marks? You didn't catch that. Hang on. I know I was shouting over it, so you may not have caught it, but we'll rewind.
And as I learned, and as I like riff in that way, it really is to me a kind of other mode of thinking about the ampersand and the ellipses, that like there is also so many friends of my mind that I feel like so grateful to be gathered by.
Are the ampersand and ellipses considered racist now?
So
is that what we're saying?
Thank you both for those sentiments. I'm just so excited for the continuation of this conversation. So the next question, just bear with me because I really want to, set the context for the conversation in order to pose, a few questions about both of your work and scale. So both Black on Both Sides and Unapologetic have such incredible and rich scale that move in and out of the academy. I can personally say that I've witnessed both of your books resonate across multiple registers and also audiences. For example, I can recall both socio-political and organizing spaces where Black on Both Sides has been referenced and also used as a framework for thinking about Blackness and transness together, and how this tethering is super helpful for our movements.
Wait, and why are we again turning to trans? This is supposed to be a feminist lecture series. I was ready to get my feminism on. I've got the hair. I'm not wearing makeup. I was feeling like extra feminist today, apparently. I was all ready for the feminist discussion, and all they're talking about are trans. So where does that leave women? Are women not feminist anymore?
Also can recall several classes, including a feminist inquiry course and a Black feminist theory course, where Unapologetic has been on the syllabus, where we discuss the rigorous possibilities enriched by a Black queer feminist lens. I'm also thinking about the Black Feminist Future Organization as a way to think about both of your work together and both of y'all's involvement. Charlene, you specifically were involved with the Some of Us Are Brave Black Feminist Organizing School for Organizers program, which teaches and trains Black organizers and activists in key concepts, terminology, ideologies, and skills in Black feminist theory and practice in 2019. And of course, amidst your 15 plus years of organizing experience, and then Riley, your involvement in the Canon Theorizing and Resisting in Black Feminism's initiative, which is Black Feminist Futures Advanced Offering in the Black Feminist Schools program alongside Cydia Hartman and Joy James, which I'm also happy to share that I will be a participant in this year. So all that to share, both of your work has a felt presence across multiple registers. So can you speak more to how transness shapes movement, Black feminism builds capacity, and how queerness can open up possibilities and spur curiosities? And I'm not sure which one of you want to go first, but it's totally up to you.
I'll go first, and I'll keep it brief.
Catherine, I can't bring it up on the screen because StreamYard doesn't let me do it yet, but thank you for being a member of the channel for 10 months. And Catherine says, it's ma'am.
First of all, I am so grateful that this work has felt useful in a number of spaces because it's been informed by those spaces. And, talking with people who knew some of the folks personally and Black on Both Sides has been among the most meaningful exchanges that I've had about the book. And, I also want to note that I think it's so fitting that like Charlene was in an earlier iteration of this thing that is ahead of me, because I think it also speaks to something about like the sensibilities that Black feminism, sensibilities, practices, and perhaps like productive ways of disorienting time that like Black feminisms offer, which is to say that like, if I'm going under the rubric of canon to kind of talk through a little bit about like racialized gender and transness, it is also deeply about, and to me, I understand it as an extension of a series of conversations that have been going on around Black feminist and queer organizing and practice. And you know, even in thinking about transness and movement, I feel compelled to say that like it feels like we're naming something twice, in so much as, you know, we're talking about transness, which is often thought of as a kind of bridge, a kind of moving across. And so I think one of the ways that I'll just kind of leave as a note there in sitting with what are the various kinds of relationships between transness and movement is that in some ways it also opens us up to thinking about all the kinds of movements that take place, even in things like stillness. You know, it kind of allows us to look more.
All right, you know these people are bullshitting when they say things like, I'm doing a rumination about movement and all the different kinds of movement that can take place, including things like stillness. I'm going to write a dissertation about how stillness is actually movement. Let's just listen to that again. Yes, Adrian, you heard it right. There is movement in stillness. That is correct. Let's rewind.
I think one of the ways that I'll just kind of leave as a note
like,
there in sitting with what are the various kinds of relationships between transness and movement is that in some ways it also opens us up to thinking about all the kinds of movements that take place, even in things like stillness. You know, it kind of allows us to look more, look against, and now I'll invoke Erica Edwards in her book about charisma, right? That it moves us toward a kind of orientation of thinking about all kinds of things like mutual aid, like the work of self-transformation, et cetera, as movement, and not as a kind of singular figure-oriented way of thinking about politics.
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to quote you, Riley. That's what I love a note from Black.
Oh my gosh, that note about there being movement and stillness, that was just so beautiful. It was just so life-changing. It was just like, I just don't know how I can follow that up. You're just so wise and amazing.
On both sides about transness and movement. To continue, it actually continues on with where you started us on with this question. And you said that trans is more about a movement with no clear origin and no point of arrival. And Blackness signifies upon an enveloping environment and condition of possibility. And for me, that I mean, this is just on page 2 of the book. And very early in the text. So
I'm going to have to read this book, aren't I? I really don't want to. I don't want to read this book.
Really situate how a reader can move through the text, and how you are understanding transness and Blackness and their relationship to each other. And some even saying relationship to each other.
Being trans and Black is related now? What about all the white trans people? What about all the trans people who are not Black? Just because something is true for you does not make it true for everyone else. This is the problem with these lectures. This is the problem right here, is these people truly believe that if something is true to them, even if they have just made it up in their bald little heads, even if something is true for them, then it must be true for everyone else. And that is not the case. Your lived experience is not everyone's lived experience. Being black and being trans are not related. They are not. A person can be black and a person can be trans, but one does not have to do with the other. Sorry.
Positive can sound like we're talking about two different things. And I think that is somewhat the
you are talking about two different
English
things.
Language. English is really trash in many ways.
I was shouting over, so you guys may not have heard that, but what she just said is, when we're talking about being black and being trans, that may seem like we're talking about two different things, but really, that's just a limitation of the language. Because language is one of the weapons that these people use. Let's listen to that again, because I was shouting over it, and I think that this is an important point. Guys, this is actually really important to understand. This war is going to be fought in language. Language is their primary weapon. Changing the language, redefining words, that is the primary weapon that these people have. And so we should never take for granted that things mean what they say they mean, or just because they used one definition for something last week that they still are using the same definition today. We always need to make sure to be really crystal clear about what definitions we are using. And that doesn't mean we ever have to accept the definitions that they're using, because they're making shit up. Yeah, exactly. It's newspeak. We are living in an era of newspeak. Josh, oh my gosh, says, hello and welcome to the 5 p.m. news. Breaking news. All matter in the universe isn't vibrating and moving, according to a trans black feminist I once saw. I mean, I would take umbrage actually with the first part of it. I actually do believe in that new age crap. I do. But just because I believe in it doesn't mean you need to. I don't particularly care if you believe in it. Whether or not you believe in new age woo-woo stuff like I do, it makes absolutely no difference in my life or my belief at all, because I don't need other people to validate me, and you shouldn't need other people to validate you either. We can disagree. We can have different experiences. It's fine.
It doesn't really it fails to capture so many things. And thinking about transness as movement and blackness as a condition of possibility and enveloping environment, you could have chose different words, of course, to talk about both transness and blackness. To me, those things are inherently connected to queerness and how I understand blackness as queerness. And one could further, and people are doing lots of great thinking about blackness as transness as blackness. And I don't think that we should get liberal with it and act like they're not trans people and black trans people within these histories. And how might we, while keeping in mind and valuing and prioritizing perhaps people, how do we also situate ideas in the way that we are thinking about the ways that people move about in the world and how the world is constructed and impacts these people's very lives? And so to me, that is that one quote sets up for me how I can think about how transness is movement and how blackness and black feminism is all about capacity, not from capaciousness as plasticity, but capaciousness as possibility. And possibility for liberation, possibility for, be it Sylvia Winters, along the lines of Sylvia Winters, or Aimé César's possibilities for new being, a new invention of the human, other possibilities, and not.
What the fuck are they talking about? She just said new being, a new invention of the human. We need to do an introductory course on Black feminism because I have no idea what's going on right now. A new type of human being? They're inventing new human beings? What the fuck? Hang on, I need to listen to like the last 20 seconds of that. Hang on.
Not from capaciousness as plasticity, but capaciousness as possibility. And possibility for liberation, possibility for, be it Sylvia Winters, along the lines of Sylvia Winters, or Aimé César's possibilities for new being, a new invention of the human, another
new being, a new invention of the human.
Other possibilities, and not just otherwise worlds 50 years from now, but abolition now, transformation now, liberation now, and it's not something that we simply have to wait on. And I think that that is something that Black feminisms, and we've used Black feminisms in this conversation, I believe, to gesture towards that, not only that there's not just one way to think about Black feminism, but to also mark the various genealogies, the various traditions, the various contributions that are global within and across Black feminisms. And so I think that's what's dope about thinking about Black feminisms, about queerness, about Blackness, about transness, because I frankly can't think about any of those things without the other. Like, they are all deeply connected. And if I were only moving through systems of knowledge and understandings of being that are rooted within Western thought, that is white supremacist, that is patriarchal, that is capitalist, and all of those things.
Capitalism! Ding, 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 ding. Capitalism. That is one of their number one enemies. The number one enemy of people like this is not actually white people, no matter what the people on Newsmax say. It is capitalism. What did she say? Western thought that is white supremacist. Everyone wins when they finally talk about how much they hate capitalism, how much the comrades hate capitalism, because that is it at the end of the day.
Things, I imagine that I wouldn't be able to go very far with thinking what those possibilities are. But once I begin to move outside of, and even within the ways that those systems of knowledge have been impacted by the very people that they have said are not human beings, that are not worthy of, if I begin to even look at that, then we can do different things. Otherwise, things become much more possible. I'll stop there. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, thank you for your sentiments, because that also ushers us into the next set of questions. But the next two set of questions will be for each of you individually. But, of course, I invite you all to, make comments about each other's sentiments too. So the first question is for you, Riley. And you already spoke to transness as a movement already, but wondering if you, could share more about how you came to think about transness as a movement, given, dominant discourses that often conceive of transness through a framework of identity. I find personally your offering on movement incredibly generative. And I also, identify a semblance of risk in what you put forth. So how is this theory moving for you? How else has this theorization been instructive in your thinking and fruitful for any active projects?
Thank you. And also really thank you for the kind words inside of the question. I want to say that when I was thinking about Blackness and transness, and the way that you offered it up to me as saying, as you having a sense of it being generative and risky, it made me think about something that is not named, but is actually an insistence in the text, which is on vulnerability. And I was really just like, yeah, there's like something about, plus one on Charlene's point that the English language is trash, but like, I was really trying to think,
The English language is trash. Then why are you speaking it? Why don't you speak another language? Wow, the English language is trash. Okay.
About what does it mean to kind of talk through figures in a way that, and I'll, move with my colleague Kara Keeling here as well, that's about looking after them and not looking for them. That's about, thinking in a way that is in which my kind of lived experience of Blackness and transness is not something that I own, but as like a way of thinking with the past around modes of survival that should be, and yeah, I'll use the normative should, that should be available within Blackness for others. And some of that I think is deeply about, this is to say that like, when people say, oh, Blackness is transness and Blackness is queerness, it's not about, it requires, to even be able to entertain that as true, it requires that we don't think about these as given through identitarian measures, but rather as ongoing practices. And I think this is where I've continued to like move the work, and the question continues to kind of shape itself around, thinking about swamps and thinking about these kinds of sites that are neither land nor water, but both. And the people who live there in a kind of Winterian way, right? In which the fact of their inhabiting that space also made them, marked them as unimaginable. And so I'm thinking about all the ways that we survive unimaginable circumstances all the time. And that like among the kind of repertoire of what we use to survive, that like a kind of way of thinking gender, not as something that we can possess, and not actually being invested in the possessive nature of gender, might in fact be another tool in our movement, but also in our survival. I'll pause there, but yeah, thank you for that question.
Thank you for that answer. And something that I both noticed that you all have been gesturing to, and you specifically, Charlene, quite literally, is around imagination and Black feminisms. So I wanted to ask you, Charlene, you write in your book that anti-Blackness works 24/7 to kill the Black imagination. And this is, since we're citing, it's on page 26, if you have your books. So I'm asking, what is the role of imagination in Black feminisms? And can you speak to the importance of the imagination in your own work? And then, of course, why is it important to revive or restore imagination? And what type of imagination work are you engaging in right now?
There are things that I wrote years ago that I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about this a little differently now. And it's not that I don't think imagination is something for us to that matters. I'm thinking about time differently these days, and what time means for Black people, and like consistently asking, and I know I'm not the only person asking this question. It's like, what is time for Black people? What is it? Like, what does it even mean?
What is time?
Like, in my actual life?
Hang on. I just didn't expect this to take this turn. Are we now living in the land of make-believe? What is time for Black people? Do Black people have their own special time? This is where the idea that telling time is racist comes from. This right here. I'm going to write this down. Minute 53. Time is racist. I'm just going to back up a little bit because I wasn't really paying attention. It happens sometimes when I drink. Sorry.
Kill the Black imagination. And this is, since we're citing, it's on page 26, if you have your books. So I'm asking, what is the role of imagination in Black feminisms? And can you speak to the importance of the imagination in your own work?
What is the role of imagination in Black feminisms? With an S, not feminism, feminisms. I don't know why it's plural. What is the role of imagination? Okay, let's see.
And then, of course, why is it important to revive or restore imagination? And what type of imagination work are you engaging in right now?
You know, there are things that I wrote years ago that I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about this a little differently now. And it's not that I don't think imagination is something for us to that matters. I'm thinking about time differently these days. And
now I should mention that I'm a person that I actually don't believe that time exists. I think time is a construct that allows us to make sense of what's happening around us. I think it's a human construct. I don't think on a spiritual level it actually exists. However, that is a wacky belief that I have. My lived experience does not dictate your lived experience. I don't really care if you agree with me. I'm not claiming I have my own special brand of time. It's just a belief that I have. It is a spiritual belief. It is not a practical, human, worldly belief. It is a spiritual belief. So you're allowed to believe crazy stuff. But when you start imposing your crazy stuff on other people, that's when you have a problem. Dude, Einstein believed in bending time and the arc of time. How do you think he did that if time existed? Einstein would agree with me. Sorry. Einstein very much would have agreed with me. The schools of mystery in Egypt taught this too. Sorry. The Egyptian high priestesses agreed with me. Sorry. But again, like, people are allowed to believe whatever they want. I don't really care if people agree with me. I don't really care. But this is not like, it's not a belief that's out of left field. I just don't believe in imposing my belief on other people.
Time means for Black people, and like consistently asking, and I know I'm not the only person.
And I definitely don't think that people have a different brand of time based on their race. That's stupid. Fantasy Island 2.0, the land of make-believe. Thank you, Nick H.
Asking this question, it's like, what is time for Black people? What is it? Like, what does it even mean? In my actual life, in my intellectual life, how am I related to what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen? And is that even a way to think about life? And the reason why that to me is connected with imagination is because oftentimes, and I think the way that I talk about imagination and unapologetic, it gestures towards something that is otherwise, something that is not yet here. And I don't think that's the only way to think about things, nor do I think that's the most productive way to think about imagination. For me, I get curious about I want to know more about imagination in spiritual spaces. I want to know more about imagination as it relates to the past. I want to know more about imagination as it comes to like what I believe is possible from how I believe it is possible for me to be after I do something that even I think is fucked up, for lack of better words. Like, what else do I think? What do I think I deserve as a person, even when I am not perfect? And what do I think that other people deserve, even when they are not perfect? Imagination is necessary for anyone, in my view, who works towards and believes in a transformed world. And by world, I mean both physical world and like the social world, the political world around us.
Political means activism.
That we are a part of. And so anti-Blackness,
as I understood it
then, when I'm writing about this, I guess in 2017, that was like probably in 2017 when I wrote that, I'm thinking about the systemic ways that Black people experience violence, suffering, and criminalization across the globe. And to even just say it works 24/7 is limiting, because it ain't just like every hour of the day and every day of the week. It's literally like it's a different time period to interrogate here. And also it's like, how many generations ahead am I thinking about this imagination that must be not just revived? Because I don't believe in a recuperative politic. I actually don't believe that I need to go back to recuperate, because everything in the past wasn't good. I don't want all of that. That's not what I'm interested in. It's not what I'm invested in. And how am I thinking about where I am now and where future generations down the line? And so I think I would write that differently, Ebony, if I were to write that chapter again. Not just given what I've learned as a student in this past year, but also given what I've learned as a person, as Riley, you know, in this pandemic. What is time? Like, I don't even know what happened in 2020. I can't even tell you, like, I can't tell you what it felt like. Was it a year? Was it 2 years? I don't know. In some ways, it feels like stuff just disappeared, like it didn't happen. And it seems like so many things happen at the same time. And so I think that restoration and revival are not what I'm interested in getting at. I am interested in generation, like generative things. I'm interested in what we are going to create and what we're going.
So, you know, what gives me hope is that we have our intellectuals who are always intellectualizing on like the the unwoke side. They have their intellectuals who would just sit around all day intellectualizing as well. These people aren't doing anything. Well, no, that's actually, I take that back. I take that back. They are doing something. You want to know why? They're teaching. They're shaping young minds. They're passing on this nonsense to the next generation. So I take that back. These two people are actually doing one of the most important things in terms of winning the culture. They're teaching.
Going to reflect upon.
Our intellectuals aren't teaching people who don't already agree with them. For the most part. Not universally, but for the most part.
So that we can create what it is that we want to be inside of and what we want to build.
Wow. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you so much. So now we're going to move in. We're going to move on to the Q&A portion of the event.
Oh, good. Q&A.
And so we have some questions, and, you know, I just want to say that I invite more folks to share questions for Charlene or Riley, for both of them to think with together. So yes, okay, we have a question. Okay. So there's a question about the role of spirituality. I know that just came up for you, Charlene, so maybe you can weigh in first, but it reads rather, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the role of spirituality, including working on vibrational and energetic levels and organizing or collective social change efforts, and also the revolutionary possibility of spirituality and movements.
That's such a big question. It's a great question. And the reason why I'm like sighing heavily is because my mind is currently, we're reading a lot about spiritual traditions and practices as modes of resilience during the Atlantic slave trade. And I'm like, which spirituality do you mean? Because there's so many spiritual traditions.
That's valid.
And even trying to pin one down or a set of them down to me in this particular moment is not what I'm interested in, and nor am I saying that that's what you're asking me. But spirituality can mean so many different things, and people can practice and engage in spiritual practices for the purposes of resilience that could be revolutionary or counter-revolutionary, depending on who you talk to, right? Like, one can perform ritual to pop off a revolution. One can perform ritual before they go stop one, stop a slave insurrection. Like there are many things that can happen there.
Wait, Cider, what? Hang on, what? There's an LGBTQ school float? Guys, you don't know, Cider is like 14 years old. or something like that. I don't want to out you, dude, but like, you're young. Why is there an LGBTQ float from your school going by your house right now? Shout out to Slater. He's a good kid, a good young man.
To always ask, to what end and through what means are we engaging in these practices?
In front, wait, what? In front of the elementary school? It used to be acceptable for gay people to come out of the closet when they were damn well ready to. I've been using this example a lot lately, so some of you may have heard it. Pete Buttigieg didn't come out of the closet till he was like 30. And now people are being forced to an elementary school. That's not okay. Please homeschool your children.
Are the means one that engage people in a process that is going to either reflect or mirror where we and how we want to be on the other side of it? Are the means and the ends actually moving us towards collective liberation? Are they broadening our access to dignity, or are they restricting them? And if your spiritual practice or the on the energetic level or any other level restricts it, doesn't move us closer, doesn't invite people into a process that is going to be reflective of how we want to be on the other side of it, then to me, I'm not sure if it's revolutionary in the way that I seek because revolution could simply be replacing one governance structure with another. It doesn't mean it's going to be liberatory. Revolution does not mean freedom or like a liberation necessarily.
Okay, I'm sorry.
In power.
Like what? Oh, so it's a change in power. What do these people actually mean by freedom? Because they're mouthing off on the internet. They're saying whatever they want to say. They're living their lives apparently the way they want to live their lives. What exactly is holding them back? What exactly is inhibiting their freedom? But of course, what they mean when they say liberation is not actually freedom. When they say liberation is they want the power. That's what they mean. She said it at the end. This is not about freedom. This is not a lot about people being able to live dignified lives. This is about them having the power over other people so they can bring the boot down on their neck. That's what it's about.
So I think we have to be discerning and specific when we talk about spiritual practices, when we talk about revolution, and what is the thing or what are the things that we're actually going for? What are the things that we are aiming for? And I don't think we all are on the same page about these things all the time. Even those of us who have taken up Black feminist commitments in both our thought and our action.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was so much there that I just want to see if I can offer up two anecdotes in concert with what's been said. So often in doing political work, I feel like I am also doing the work of unlearning certain kinds of spiritual teachings.
When they say political work, they mean activism.
Tell me that I need to become a martyr in this moment. And that to me is a kind of process of decolonizing the kind of religious teachings that I grew up in. But then at the same time, and I'm really struck by and want to lift up the idea of ritual as a tool, and not necessarily, and therefore can be a tool for many different ends. But I think this is in some ways going back to the kind of problem, let's say, of time, for which like ritual has actually been really key for me in terms of what I think of as like this kind of long duration of living incremental time. And so it's like, I think there's so many aspects of moving throughout the week and the day that feel like, oh, let me just get through. On Wednesday, there'll be an opportunity for breath, right? But ritual has become very intrinsic to me. And I think it's absolutely right that like we need to be
It's a religion. They're talking about it like it's a religion.
And intentional.
If you're talking about, God damn it, if you're talking about ritual as a tool, they're literally framing their belief system as a religion then. Like ritual is like, if we're talking about like this in terms of a spiritual practice, like that's what, I mean, they could not be more overt that this is a religion, or some of you were saying in the chat that this is a cult. That is exactly correct. Exactly correct.
Around what those practices are. And maybe we can, like, I feel like what you were offering in your last comment, Charlene, to the question that was directed towards you about time, I'm like, we should maybe like spit about that a little bit more. I'm still buzzing on the question of time, but I also want to honor that there have been questions raised in the audience. But I'm just saying, there's a lot about the time that we're in, which is also, you know, in many ways, multiple times at once, that I think reflect on, or that I'm hearing now, the kind of iterations of the conversation we're having now.
Absolutely. Well, actually, we have some questions about time and temporality. So maybe you have, maybe this is an opportunity to share more of your thoughts, Riley. So Jordan says, thank you all for such beautiful offerings. And this is again specifically directed to you, Riley, but also like Charlene, if you have sentiments, please feel free to weigh in. How you've written on the co-terminality of Blackness and transness. I was wondering how your work on transness functions as a critique of time and historical temporality.
All right, before we get into the Q&A, we have what, about half an hour left of this chat. We'll see how long that actually takes in terms of streaming time. I've only had one beer so far, but I'm getting pretty close. Guys, just a reminder, this is Happy Hour. This is a show that I do on Fridays starting at 3 p.m. where we watch crazy nonsense like this, which is supposed to be Black feminism, but is really about Black transness more than anything, because feminists don't exist anymore, women don't exist, only non-binary exists, according to this person. We do this every Friday at 3 p.m. If you enjoy it, I hope you'll consider subscribing on whatever platform you are watching on at the moment, whether that be YouTube, whether that be Facebook, whether that be Rockfin, or whether that be Odyssey. And please make sure you join my locals community, kb.locals.com. It's scrolling across the screen. Locals is the only place where we can have conversations without being censored on the internet. Not the only place. We can have conversations also. Like we can do stuff on Odyssey. Like Odyssey, they don't censor videos. Rockfin, they don't censor videos. But Locals is where you can actually interact with real people in normal settings where not everyone is at each other's throats. It's really nice. We're doing lots of cool things in Locals. We're going to be forming an Unwoke Army in Locals, which I'm really excited about. kb.locals.com. Come and join us. And please mount that like button or that flame or whatever, the thumbs up, whatever it is on whatever you're watching on. If you are not so much enjoying this, because this isn't, you know, this isn't really about enjoyment as much as it is about commiserating, I suppose. Let's keep going.
Shapes how you theorize Blackness beyond the enclosure of history, scientific empiricism, and time, and the disciplines that rely on them. What is time/history to Black transness?
Yeah,
what is time and history to Black transness?
Such a grounding to kind of keep talking about time. So I want to see if I can respond in various ways to this question. One is like the incremental time is a reference to Aliyah Abdur-Rahman and the work that she's been doing around the ecstatic. Two is the kind of definition of time in Black on Both Sides, by the invisible, in The Invisible Man, the narrator, the unnamed narrator protagonist, who talks about time as being experienced as a boomerang, that you know that you've gone through time because it hits you again, right? That history is itself always perspective and present. And so certainly I think that that kind of working with that sense of time helped to produce a project that was really, in some ways I also say it's because I'm not a historian, but it produces a sense of like working in the past that's absolutely about thinking maybe the past is the like echo of the future. It is that like the fact of people, and this is a,
what these people are doing right now is they're perverting mindfulness. Oh, Jesus. I just hit my microphone. These people are perverting mindfulness. So when you're practicing mindfulness, and for people who don't know, I wrote a whole book about practicing mindfulness in the workplace. Like mindfulness is like my jam. I know it may not always seem like it, but it actually is. But like they're like one of the like core principles in mindfulness is to be in the present moment. And what has happened in the past doesn't necessarily influence what happens now, and what happens in the past is not necessarily influencing what's going to happen in the future. And being in the present moment allows you to kind of look at things non-judgmentally and, not allow yourself to create obstacles for yourself, get in your own way, all these things. These people are appropriating mindfulness, and they're perverting it to mean something it does not mean. And it pisses me off. I wrote a whole goddamn book about this.
This was a situation where someone asked me something about like one of the chapters, a chapter on Lucy Hicks Anderson and Georgia Black and James McCarris, and the person was like, oh, so Black trans people must have been living better in the 50s because they're not dead. And I was like, because they weren't killed. And I was like, I don't think we could ever make that kind of assumption. But I was like, but part of it is that, it certainly helps us to rethink the idea of time as a march in progress. But it also helps us to think about, and this is part of the kind of intention there, which is to say, like, that when we suggest like what are our strategies for living, we also must, we must acknowledge that they're probably not new. And I think that was the deep sensibility that there's very rarely anything new. But I also, hope that I can like maybe respond in just one other way to this question, especially as we often think about time as being mapped across the coordinate of space. And I want to just, also lift what I've been kind of thinking about and trying to work my mind around, which is like what Denise Ferreira da Silva is offering as that distinction.
This is legitimately the weirdest conversation I've ever seen. I completely agree with Albert. He said this in the, like, I just did not expect it to go in this particular direction, and I'm not quite sure what precisely to make of it, if I'm honest.
Between the world and the plenum, and the fact of the plenum as also this place that we inhabit, in which all the worlds that exist are also inside of that. And I've just been finding that super, super generative about what does it mean, not only, to give up, like, what is our sense of the nation, which I think many people are like willing to give that up, but like, what would it mean to give up the notion of the world? And inside of the way that she's raising that question, she poses another one that I keep.
Most people are ready to give up their sense of what it means to be a nation. Yes, agree. But even more than that, what if we gave up our sense of what it means to be a world? This person wants to usher in a new world order. She has said, like, I'm sorry, I keep saying they have said like multiple times in this video something that sounded globalist and new world orderist. Okay, comrades.
Thinking about, which is like, what if the quote answer to climate change is an actual meaningful redress to the theft of land and a body that constitutes the new world? And I just sit with that question like, what if that became a trajectory for thinking? Now, certainly I'm not trying to say like, oh, we shouldn't think about our carbon emission, but I'm thinking like, yeah, like, are there ways to think with these concepts that we have been given that are about structuring us supposedly in one place, and to like productively unmoor them towards some other mode of thinking, to keep redress as a kind of central component for also how we think about what it means to try to live with a dying world that has been made this way in many ways, right? Through the kind of mechanics and the brutality of racial capitalism, racial slavery, and settler colonialism and indigenous genocide. So I'll pause there.
I have just one thought on that, Riley. Yes. And to that, like, what would it mean, like, to the question that you pose, which I think is a very compelling question.
I'm gonna bet you, all the money in my bank account that she has no effing idea what this other person just said, and that's why her only response is, yes, stunning and brave, yes, absolutely, that was beautiful, yes. She has no idea what she just said.
Continuing,
they just said, God
I see
damn
what
it.
Essay shared about De Silva's work there about the end of the world, is where can we look to see where that question has been answered or is being answered already? Like, what to someone, to the people whose worlds have already ended.
That's it.
You know, the world that they thought would end. I was talking to a friend whose two of her family members, young people, were recently sentenced to a couple decades in prison. Very young, much younger than me. And she said, I felt like my world and their world just ended in that moment, as soon as the sentence was given. And if we can speak, you know, about the world's ending in a non-material way, you know, in this, like, in this conversation, and we could think, to me, I necessarily think about people's whose worlds have already ended. Like, for them, everything that they have known is gone and they are entering into somewhere else, where the various freedoms that they once had, like choosing when to turn the light off, when to go to bed.
Wait. The various freedoms that they once had, like choosing when to turn the light off or choosing when to go to bed. Okay, well, she's talking about prison. I mean, you can what the hell? God damn it. She's talking about someone in prison. Okay, I have to reframe
no longer have.
I really thought for a second that she was arguing that black people, or that black trans, whatever the hell, like, couldn't turn off the light when they wanted to, but she's talking about being in prison. So it's a little bit different.
And what can we learn from them? What can we learn from people who have served and are serving long-term sentences in prisons? What can we learn, like, as
don't commit crimes?
People, us, who have taken up abolitionist politics, practices, doing the intellectual work, all that good stuff.
Listen. I have a friend that went to prison for a really long time for a crime that he didn't commit. And so I'm not going to suggest that, like, not committing crimes is, like, you know, the only is like a surefire way not to go to prison, because you can go to prison when you didn't commit a crime. However, most people that are in prison actually did commit crimes. And so if you don't commit crime, whether you agree with the law or not, you have a pretty good sporting chance of not going to prison.
Elia would say, the world has ended for people, ended many times before. And I'm thinking particularly about incarcerated people, like today, like right now, and those two young people who my friend loves. She loves them deeply.
Yeah.
And everything felt like it came crashing down. And so what is it about the fact that, what does it take for someone who's incarcerated to actually think that something else is possible, even within the prison wall? Because people are doing that and have done that, and there's a tradition of people doing that. And I think that there's a lot that we can learn from those folks.
That's amazing. I completely agree. And also, it makes me think really deeply about C.C. McDonald's letters.
Yes.
And the letters of so many, there's that tradition of Black radical thinking from folks who are incarcerated.
That's right.
And I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I also really appreciate that. Thank you both. That was really generative for my own thinking, and so I'm just grateful to you both. So we have a lot of questions. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can, but of course we're coming up against the end of the event. So we have a question that reads, how do you both reconcile with the fluidity of Black feminist thought and politic, which is not always radical or queer or inclusive?
I don't know if you have immediate thoughts on that, Riley. I'm like, that's politics. Politics are inherently antagonistic and going to be full of contradictions. I don't think there's anything special about Black feminist thought and politics that gives to say that it is always going to be about collective liberation, or always going to be about people who are queer identified, or now I don't know, Camille, how you understand queer inclusive, but that can mean so many different things, and even radical can mean so many different things. But I think if you're going to engage in Black feminist thought and political action, I think there has to be a high level of acceptance that there are going to be contradictions. And there's going to be conflict, like legit conflict and disagreements. And that to me, is less about reconciliation and more about always revisiting what my commitments are, and always being in relationship with people who I can be in principle struggle with, to figure out even where I need to go, where I'm not actually living up to what I say that I believe in and what I want to do.
I deeply agree. I mean, it makes me want to cite what you were saying earlier about the distinction between perfection and integrity. I definitely see that there are multiple forms of Black feminisms, and as intellectual experiments, let's say, there are tools that are intended as one thing that can be transformed to do other things, which includes something like queer antagonist supposedly work that can be rethought and reimagined. I mean, I so often I experience my sense of belonging in Black feminisms precisely because as they held on to and meaningfully live into the category of woman, they also opened up the space for thinking about the multiplication of gender that exists within that nomenclature, Black womanhood. And so, I mean, I'm like, the inside of that is transness. Now, whether or not people are like, yes, I understand myself as trans because I'm a Black woman, is like a different thing. But what I'm saying is that it was my route into, and I'm very grateful to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you both. So our next question reads, thank you both for your work and joining us today. And this is from Jamie. We are living through times where images of anti-Black brutality appear constantly on our televisions, phones, and computers. This is directed to you, Riley, this specific point. In Riley's remarks, discuss the idea that grievability implies value. What does it look like?
Hang on. We have a super chat from Emily Atwood. Thank you, Emily. These people are confusing. Maybe they would like us all to be like the Cybermen from Doctor Who. Fun fact, I've never actually watched Doctor Who. So I don't know what that reference is. I tried. I think I watched like one episode and it didn't take. I'm not a Doctor Who person. I'm not really like there's some sci-fi that I like, but not like a lot. So I'm sorry. I know I've disappointed many of you. Most of the people I'm friends with are kind of obsessed with Doctor Who, and I just never understood. Never did.
For us to pursue Black feminist and Black queer activist work in ways that affirm the value of all Black people who face anti-Black brutality. What does it look like for Black activism to proceed from a non-binary starting point? And of course, we welcome both your sentiments on this question.
I'll start with some citations there, like in terms of thinking about the relationship between grief and value. I'm deeply informed by Terry and Williamson's work, and also how she is working with Lyndon Barrett. And so, the fact of value as being a concept derived from violence is something that I think is part of how one connects something like the grievability, which is like the legibility of a body, in a legibility of a person to be grieved around. So I want to emphasize that this is also about a kind of politics of recognition that's going on, and the visibility politics that's going on.
All right, we've got about 10 more minutes, but guess what, guys? I just finished my beer. And so I would like to try a different beer. I'm just getting one of the littler ones this time. And I think I want to try this Nitro Creme Brulee because I remember this being really sweet last time I had it. And it's little. Although it's a big beer, it's like, it's 10%. This little tiny beer is 10%. But I maybe some of the things these people are saying will start to like make sense if I just drink more. I don't think anything could go wrong with this plan. I already don't understand what they're saying. So it can't make it any worse. Okay, let's see. Now this is a nitro. Nitro beers are going to be creamier. They're going to be more full-bodied. Look at that. So pretty. Oh, God. I can smell it from here. This is like at least a foot away from my face. I can smell the sweetness. Oh, God. It smells like sugar. I'm gonna let that one settle for a second before I take a sip. It smells like sugar. Muhammad said, Cybermen are noted for their strong logical reasoning ability, so I'm afraid that root is excluded for these brave, pioneering Womixen. All right, let's give the beer a try. This is Southern Tier Creme Brulee. Cheers, everyone. Happy Friday. We made it. Really creamy. Really smooth. Still very sweet. This might be a little too sweet for me. Especially after that Fluffernutter beer, which I really like. The Fluffernutter beer grew on me. I think, I'm not sure I would have labeled it as a Fluffernutter beer because it did not taste at all like Fluffernutter. But it really did grow on me after a while, and I enjoyed it. I really did. This might be a little too sweet. This is kind of like sour beers. I always like the idea of sour beers, and then I get them, and I drink like maybe half of it, and I'm like, it's like drinking pickle juice. But it's a nice dessert beer. Let's see. Let's give it another sip. This might be too sweet for me. I'm going to go with it for the moment because we only have we don't have that long left, but might be too sweet.
But I think to kind of move toward that latter part of the question about like, what are the other modes of value that are available? And, you know, I think in some ways it's about, I think that there's been a number of directions that we've been taking in the conversation that have indicated a different orientation to what is of value, what one gives one's life to. And I think very deeply about that like, you know, if we get back to the question of like, you know, what is time to Black people? I'm like, what is it to be giving energy to something? This is a finite life. So like, what kind of conversations am I looking to nurture? What kinds of communities am I needing to show up in? And like, what does that mean in the landscape of how I want people to understand what we have collectively worked together to like transform or change. I want to pause. There was another little piece in there, but please, you know, forgive me, folks. At this point, I'm like a little bit less able to hold on to all of my strands of thought.
Yeah, I can read this last portion. It reads, what does it look like for Black activism to proceed from a non-binary starting point?
So I also start with the citation there, which is Tiffany Lathobo-King's Black Shoals. I think it's really important for us to continue to think with that book and to think with the naming of the Black Shoals as a non-binary place.
What the fuck?
But, you know, part of what I feel.
Did she just say the name of a book was non-binary?
And a kind of personal, philosophical, political orientation around non-binary. You know, one of the things that I've been thinking about is the relation between, you know, the neither nor, the both and, the kind of what does it help us to hold on to about something like uncertainty? And also like, what does it help us to like recontextualize for ourselves about what it means to give things up, right? So like, I often feel like, you know, we think about the pleasures of what we gain, you know, as often and as we have been deeply disciplined and trained and conditioned to do by capitalism. But I've been thinking about whether or not non-binary might offer
as what we
an opportunity
to
to
by
delight
capitalism
in what we give up, you know? And I think some of that is about the kind of idea of gender, and we can also talk about sexuality as things that are helpful to possess, you know, like I'm just like, you know, if we can agree that gender is a colonial system, then perhaps much like in the kind of idiom of abolition, like we have to.
So as a reminder for anyone who may have come in late, this person, and we're not exactly sure of what this person's gender is, this person argues that if you believe in gender at all, in any way, or use gender terms in any way, then you are engaging in colonialization. This person argues that we should be coming from a non-binary place in our conversations about Black feminism, which I don't know why you participated in a Black feminism conversation if you're talking about non-binary, because that inherently seems to not be feminist to me. But that's what they're saying when they said gender is a colonial system. They want to get rid of gender entirely. We're not allowed to have gender.
Undiscipline the cop in our mind. What if we also undiscipline our attachment to gender as we've known it? And so this has been animating some of the thinking I've been doing around non-binarity.
What if we unconditioned our attachment to gender as we know it? Okay, then what do you want to create? Do you want the result? These people never think through the logical consequences of what they're putting out there.
Which is perhaps, to give another example, it's like, you know, people talk about like, how do we disentangle toxicity and masculinity? And I say, well, the abolition of gender. Like we would all have to give it up, right? That like that would presuppose that
if we just give up gender, there won't be any more toxic men. If we just get rid of gender, there will be no more men. Problem solved. Problem solved. We can all go home. We're good. If we just give up gender, there will be no feminism. What the fuck? Although it's kind of funny because this one introduced herself as a lesbian, right? So is she okay with giving up gender?
To presuppose that any sort of...
This is like one of those instances where this person and this person know that this person is crazy, but they can't say that they're crazy. They have to pretend to agree with everything, because if they don't agree with everything, then they're being bigoted and racist and probably transphobic. So they have to sit there and pretend that they agree with everything this person is saying, even though this person is obviously crazy. But look at their faces. They know that she's crazy. What the fuck, whatever. They know that this person is crazy. Look at the mouth. This woman is not buying any of this.
Masculinity would always be conditioned by toxicity means that we got to burn the whole thing down, right? So I'll stop there.
I'm gonna pick up on some things because, I've been staring at the part of the question about what does it look like for Black activism to proceed from a non-binary starting point, and really trying to think through that while I'm listening to you, Riley. And the way I was taught about abolition, the first person, I always say this, was Asha Ransby Sporn. She was 19 years old at the time, a Black feminist, abolitionist, who was the first person to ever tell me about the abolition of the prison industrial complex. And she, along with others, Miriam Kaba, Beth Ritchie, these were the folks who I learned about abolition from. Paige May. It is, and Ruthie Wilson Gilmore. It is, yes, about burning all the shit down. And Black feminist abolition practice is also about what are we going to build, and not just after it's all gone, in the process of getting rid of it. And so to me, I think we have too many conversations about gender absent of patriarchy. I am not post-patriarchy. I'm not post thinking that we got it, because I say this a lot, like, even if we get rid of the human, what else is there? What's still there that's not that? I want to know. I'm not clear that there's enough thinking that has been done around what is on the other side of the abolition of gender, when we are not talking about the abolition of patriarchy. And this is not to say that you're not talking about this, Riley, but is my issue with gender, and you were very clear to say as it is, like as we know it. And I think we have to be disciplined in noting, like, as we know it, as it is. And not even to say that the pre-colonial constructions of gender or performance of gender are what we want either. I'm not saying that we just need to go back to what we had before. But in thinking about a non-binary starting point, I'm really curious about what is a start. How do we name that to also name what it is that we want? Because I get weird about, like, when people call me a non-man, like, what does that mean exactly? To name.
I told you she was not having the get rid of all woman things. When people call me a non-man, what does that mean? Exactly. There is a word for that. It's called woman.
Me to identify something as not something else. What is on the other side of it? What is there? And this is not, and this is definitely trafficking in the way that non-binary has been deployed as an identity. What else are we doing here? Is what I want to know. What are the politics that we are moving forward through this? If this is our starting point, where are we trying to go with it? I'm with it. Let's rock with it. And I think it's an opportunity for us to do more thinking and actual practice, because that is what abolition is. It's about, so we want to abolish gender. What is the practice that we are engaged in right now to create something on the other side of that. And I think that
I want an answer to this. I want an answer to this.
And
what is the answer, Riley?
I'm not satisfied quite yet. And I don't know how else to name it, Riley. Like I'm not like my professor Natasha Sharma is always talking about the there. Like, what is there? Where is the there? And maybe it's something that maybe there is no there, but it's something that I'm wrestling with, I guess, is what I'm saying, less than having an answer.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious, like, Jamie, about what you think about it. Like, if we're starting, like, what is it? Are we moving from an identitarian point of non-binary? Are you passing this as a political location? Are you talking about this as a way of being with each other? I want to know more about that so that I can be clear about how to move through it.
Sure. I mean, I appreciate you, offering that you're grappling with it. Mm-hmm. And, I think, there are certain kinds of modes of embodiment that I think are not, that I work to disarticulate from positions or analytics, right? So like Black on Both Sides is about transness and trans people and trans, so that for me, like in thinking about non-binary, it's about beginning from a different place, or suggesting that we begin from a different place and see what unfolds in the manner of relation, in the matter of nurturing what it means to have children, in the matter of, so like, if I completely hear you that, when we're talking about abolishing gender, we're also, that's inside of a whole bunch of other systems that have to be abolished. But I think that part of what
down of everything.
I'm really
just get rid of it all.
Concerned by is the very way that normative gender gets inserted in to be a kind of stand-in for a set of in most instances, reformist claim makings that I'm just like, what if we kind of moved away from, and I'm thinking about just the kind of long history of, articulating one's even position as the human vis-a-vis gender. So I'm like, let's kind of sit with that as a starting place for looking at other modes of unfolding. What else would have to fall? And I think precisely what you're grappling with
is what we're learning.
Also
she has no idea
what that unfolding will look like. What else will have to fall from a non-binary space?
And that could very well be everything. It could very well be everything that has to fall. And what really resonated me with what you said about like, what is it that we're holding on to? It makes me think about some of the most compelling pieces in Jennifer Nash's Black Feminism Reimagined, about what even when it's warranted, some of the defensiveness around certain conceptual framework of intersectionality, or be it even other things. It's like, what becomes possible on the other side of us letting things go? And things that were, and what does it even mean to own something in the first place? What does ownership do to us? To own and to not own something. So thank you for that. In essay, I see you talking about like the non and the non-binary is not non-white or non-male. I don't know about the way it's being deployed in activism spaces, particularly the non-men stuff. Like I continue to grapple with it, and I appreciate Riley for everything that you just offered, because it's helping to clarify some things for me. So thanks for being patient as we like learn with each other out loud.
Appreciate that.
Oh my goodness.
I'll show you guys the shawl differently.
We have to end
in a sec.
But I just want to thank you both for such a generative conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
What the fuck? That was out of UCLA. I forgot about that. Fucking UCLA. Shannon says, oh God, hey God. Shannon says it's about feeling superior without having to accomplish anything. Yeah, Shannon, I think that about sums it up. I do. So for those of you who asked what I've been knitting, and I just showed you a little sneak peek in the little window, but we have the big window now, so we can show you. This is my West Knits Mystery Yarn Along shawl that we just got our third clue today. So you're seeing the first clue and the second clue, and I've just started in on the third clue. You can't quite see it all, but it's really colorful. I'm actually knitting 2 different ones. This is my first one, and I'm working on a second one too. I'm not quite as far along on the second one. But this section here is the third clue that just came out today. I'm doing black and pink. It's going to be this is a brioche section. There's a non-brioche option, but I'm doing brioche because I know how to do it. And I think it's looking pretty good so far. And so this yarn is actually really soft. This yarn is Ching Fiber Dashing Sassy. It's only available from Stephen and Penelope. And it's kind of a little difficult sometimes to work with, but it's looking good, right? Is it looking good, guys? Hang on, let me see if I can. Hang on. It's looking pretty good, huh? So that's all oh God, I spit down on my teeth. Weird. That's all we have for today, guys. I don't know if I'm gonna finish this creme brulee beer. It's really sweet. But thank you for spending some time with us. So coming up on Monday, I'm gonna be having a state rep in New Hampshire who is running for Congress in CD1 in New Hampshire. His name is Tim Baxter. And we're going to be talking to him about what he believes. He's a cool dude. One of the reasons I wanted to bring Tim on the channel is not just to I believe in him. There are a couple candidates in this race I like CD1 in New Hampshire is Chris Pappas' district. It's a stacked race. There are a lot of people in it. There are a couple candidates that I like. I like Julian as well. He's a good dude, but I wanted to bring Tim on the channel because I wanted to have you guys meet kind of like an average Republican state rep in New Hampshire. So you can see that they are a little bit different. And I mean that in actually a really good way. So I'm going to have Tim on the channel on Monday. How many the other plans other than the usual streams so far for next week? Maybe some stuff will come up. But of course I will let you guys know. And again, please make sure if you enjoyed today's stream, of course, you can join my locals for free, kb.locals.com. It's ticking across on the bottom of the screen. But if you really want to support the work I do, please consider becoming a member on my locals, a supporter. It will unlock all the features. You're going to get access to 2 Zoom calls every single week. I spend 6 hours on Zoom with my locals members every single week across 2 different Zoom calls. We do them on Tuesdays. We do them on Thursdays. And you can join in the conversation. I assure you it's not just me talking the whole time. It's actually much less of me talking than you're going to see on my channel because I want to hear from you guys and I want to be able to have conversations about what's going on. And you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, get support from the group, get encouragement, get reinforcement. It's a really positive environment. So if you haven't joined locals yet, please consider joining locals. As a member, you're also going to get book club. You're going to get debate club. You're going to get crafting bitches. We do knitting and crafting in my locals. We do all sorts of awesome stuff. So kb.locals.com. You can become a supporter for $5 a month, or you can give more if you like. You can become an annual member at $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can make one-time gifts as well. I so value all my locals members. You guys are awesome. You keep me sane. Many of you are in the chat right now. I'm so appreciative and so thankful for all of you because it helps keep me independent. It helps me to do the work that I'm doing. And so please consider joining us. All right, guys, I'm going to go do some knitting, possibly watch a horror movie or two because I can't anymore after this crap. Guys, have a great weekend. I'll be posting some videos over the weekend and I will see you all next week. Bye.